Hello. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to another live stream with me, 320 Sim Pilot. Great to have you all here. Today we are going to take a relatively short flight, 1 hour 40 minutes, it's a reasonable length, in the A320 NEO by Flybywire in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're going to take it from here in Milan Linate Airport down to Malta. This is a relatively new livery of the ITA Airways rebirth of Alitalia, you could call it, although for legal reasons it most certainly is not, and it is I think very nice. I recently saw it in person and it really spoke to me, so I thought I'm going to do a flight with that. Got to do that. So we'll talk about the livery in a minute. Great to have you all here. Thanks for coming along. It's been a long time. It's 1st of April was our last stream. That's 19 days ago, one of our longer breaks. That wasn't anticipated, but we had a few events in my days off and then a lot of work. So it's been, for the first time since starting this channel, I can honestly say that work is back to normal, which has been really nice. So that doesn't mean that the streams will be this infrequent normally. It just meant that what happened was there were some other things going on in life over the last couple of weeks that were already pre-planned, and that's just meant that along with work limited my ability to get on the streams. But it's been a lot of flying. I've been loving it, and it's great to be back here streaming. I was really looking forward to this, so as soon as I could, we are here for a flight. So jumping into the chat, just a little bit of catching up on YouTube, and then I will say hello to Twitch as well, of course. Otter Totems, good to see you. And Bottom, Richard V, thanks for coming along to moderate. I hope you're doing very well. And Victor Tango, who recently started the adventure of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So great to have you all here. I hope you're doing very well. Chick Point and Lucas, good to have you come along. Tom Corwine, I hope you're doing very well. J Bay, good to see you again. Miku, it's been a long time. Ed Haslam, hope you're doing very well as well. Great to see you here. Hashvinder Singh, hope you're doing great this evening. Elitis Maggie, good to see you. Michael John, back behind us. Isaac of Old Faithful, I see. What a lovely livery that is. Absolutely, I totally agree. And not many new airlines, especially sort of lower, I'm not going to call it low cost airline, but it's born out of a need to save money, I suppose. And it's unusual to see expense put into the liveries of these airlines. We know what we're expecting: white fuselage, painted tail, painted engines. Especially, that's a very European thing to do, and it's been great to see something so different and such a rich blue put onto an airplane. It looks really nice. Alexander Paz, good to have you here. I hope you're doing well. Great to see you here indeed. Who else we got? Aviation Goats. How do you get the new 737? It's not out yet, I'm afraid. Gabriel B, good to have you. Chick Point, I think I said Chick Point as well. I do apologise, I'm getting muddled already, out of practice of streaming. Pilot Olaf, Dave Geimer, good to have you here. Great to see you all. And loads names, I do apologise. Mr. Espresso, I hope you're doing well. Good to see you back here again. Ed Haslam says, feels like it's been some time since we were in the A32NX. Totally agree. It's been a long time, actually. I almost streamed it last time, but then we took the 340 for a spin. A, because I wanted to, and B, because I had trouble with Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think that was originally going to be a Flight Simulator stream, but I couldn't get it to work reliably, so gave up on that. Brian Griffin, 787, good to see you as well. Thanks for coming along. Right, I'm sure I've missed lots and lots of people there. Rachel Ryan, first live stream for me. Nice to actually catch you. Good to see you, Rachel Ryan. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be very relaxed. We're going to just start up. This is a cold and dark Airbus, and we're going to do our day job, really. We're going to power it up and fly it down there. That's what people want. That's what the passengers certainly want. Gabriel B says, Euro white liveries are kind of boring, and I agree with you. Cam A321, that's incredibly generous. The $20, really appreciate it, Cam. Cam says, very good afternoon to you and chat, Captain. That's Cam, far too kind. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the channel so much and being here again. And that is very generous of you. And I hope you're doing very well. Thanks for coming along. Vincent, hello to you. And I'm struggling to keep up. Indeed, yeah, work is getting back, which is great. Ali P says Linate is such a nice airport. I like it a lot. Don't know why. Well, I like it a lot as well, and I can talk about why in a moment. Sadly, I haven't got any fancy scenery for it this time around. I must get it. That's my mistake. Michael John, thanks so much for a £5 donation. Very generous, Michael. Michael says, Evening Captain, been watching your videos for about a year now. Figured I'd do the decent thing and support this brilliant channel. You didn't have to, Michael, but I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's very kind. And yeah, I'm glad you've been enjoying the channel. I know the videos have been slightly slower, although we haven't streamed. We have managed to get some videos out. So I've been, especially I've got the new one out about Brussels. I was quite pleased with that, and the taxiway sign. So I remember some people were talking about the taxiway sign video from Just Flight. So hopefully those were useful for those of you who were looking at those. And I've got to say, if you haven't seen my Brussels airport video, at some point I do recommend you take a look. Of course, I want to try and make you watch my videos, but it's a really, really special scenery that I haven't seen something quite like it. I'm sure there is out on the market, but I personally haven't seen it. So yeah, there's some really, really good details and some next level sort of texturing and so on in that one. It makes it, and just little animations and so on that make it a level above what I was expecting, I must admit. So very good. So thank you again to Cam for that very kind donation, and Michael John, really appreciate it. Thank you both for coming along. Lauren V, thanks for coming to moderate as well. Victor Tango says, I think that's the same shade of blue they use on the Italian Aerobatic Air Force planes. Aha, the Freccia Tricolore, there you go. I believe it's also the colour they use in their football teams, but I don't follow football, so I don't know. All I know is it's not the colour they use on their Formula 1 cars, but there we go. So, yeah, it's really nice. I think it's slightly shinier than this. The author here has done a fantastic job, and it's not perfectly glossy. It is a slightly matte sort of colour, I would say, but I haven't spent as much time around it, so maybe the author has, who made this livery. But I think this is ever so slightly too matte. Maybe. It's hard to say. We'll see what it looks like up in the sun, because I hope you will agree with me that the thumbnail that this livery produced was one of my favourites. I think it looks great. So perhaps it's just the muted sky. I've only seen this under blinding sunshine, which is the weather we've had in Europe the last few days. So perhaps it looks a little more muted when you get it in. But it's nice to see a matte texture. Again, more like the Formula 1 cars that we see these days. So yeah, I think they've done a great job with this livery. And look at the detail. This is the little dots that they put into it. Now, I'm not sure what these represent, but these are, of course, on the real aircraft. So again, a very nice depiction. And I love the way it's done, the tail. I'm a big fan of lots of things they've done here. I like the fact that this Italian flag is done not in line with the rudder. It's done properly to sort of break up the lines of the rudder almost, which gives it a really sharp look, changes the tail of the airplane a bit. And I like the integration of the green and red sort of traditional Alitalia colours into the engines, but then just splashes of red on the blue. Yeah, it just really nice. Comes together really well. Chickpoint says, maybe we can put on some clear skies when we land in Ibiza. We are going to Malta, and I hope so. I'm expecting nicer weather in Malta, and certainly when we get up above the clouds as well. I don't know what what happened over there. Greetings from Atlanta, Mr. Martini, good to see you. Thanks for coming along. Cam says, I heard they may go back to Alitalia name, which would be very smart. So they own the rights to the Alitalia name. There is some issue with the European Union about whether they are allowed to operate under the Alitalia name, because you're not allowed to pass assets from a government-owned failed airline quite so easily. The idea is that it's anti-competitive, I understand, but I understand very little about it. But yeah, so this is formed from the eventual bankruptcy of Alitalia. That's how we've ended up with this airline. But yeah, great livery. I think it's really nice, and it will be interesting to see as Gabriel says. Wonder if Lufthansa will buy it. There's a few buyers, including Indigo, who I believe own Wizz Air. So anyway, there's a lot to come for this airline, I imagine. It seems to have a lot of interest. But anyway, great livery. Maybe that's all that they took to get the the investors interested. And yeah, we are going to have good fun taking it out for a spin. Also, a highly updated version. This is the latest experimental version of the A32NX, so it could be some instability, but still, I'm looking forward to it. It's changed a lot. The fly pad has changed around a lot as well, so we'll take that for a spin. You'll notice unusual, but Linate, no jet bridges. We're going to not even have to push back. We're actually going to start up on stand here, so we won't get to try out the fly pad's pushback, and then you just taxi off down there carefully, so you don't hit anybody or any vehicles. That plane's still spinning around over there. Right, let me first of all jump over to Twitch, I must say as well. So Mr. Banana, good to see you over on Twitch. I hope you're doing well. And it's good to see you, Blip. I hope you're doing well as well. Thanks for coming along. Mr. Banana, Luslege, I hope you're doing well. Great to see you. And Lauren, thanks for moderating over there on Twitch. So yeah, of course, you are all welcome to watch this on Twitch and on YouTube. Flying Carpet says you must install the latest SAS livery. If you haven't done that yet, stunning. Yep, that SAS livery I've been notified of, and I'm looking forward to it. Carlos, good to see you here. Carlos says, love the breakdancing prop planes, makes me feel like excellent. And Lauren V says, Indigo own Wizz, Frontier, JetSmart in Chile, Volaris in Mexico, and Lynx. There you go, Indigo, yeah, big group. Lauren knows all the details on that. Lucas, thank you so much, Lucas, for your... sorry, I'm just getting lost in all my applications here, make sure I got the right one. Lucas, thanks so much for your very generous donation, really appreciate it. Lucas has super chatted $10, very kind. Lucas says the best that ever was. Again, as I said to Lucas in the in the Discord. I'm sure there's plenty that would disagree, but I really appreciate the thought, and it's very kind of you. Thanks so much, Lucas, for your 10 Canadian. That was really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the channel, and thanks for coming along today. Thanks for those follows on Twitch, and Mr. Martini has super chatted $5. Salve Italia. Thanks so much, Mr. Martini. Really appreciate it. Very kind of you, and I hope you're doing well, and I hope you enjoy the stream. And thanks for kindly donating towards the channel. It's very kind of you. I'm struggling here to keep up. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So thank you to all of you very kind donations. And yeah, what we're going to do is enjoy that spinning plane a bit, and then we're going to jump into the flight deck and get set up. So thank you all for coming. Thanks for those very kind donations. Let's go for a flight. It's been a while, and I've been looking forward to it. We've got lots to chat about. The flight sim industry has once again changed, seemingly almost overnight from where it was, although it's actually been a year and a half now, isn't it, of Microsoft Flight Simulator. But here we go. So Gabriel B says it's quite sad ITA will not operate Boeing. Yes, they have mentioned that they are interested mainly in Airbus, I think, for now, but we always know that that's never guaranteed for a long time. So yeah, we shall see how that plays out. Right. IDP says, why do you like LIML? So let me show you the charts. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to brief this first, see if this works. I'm trying to think of a better flow for the start of the stream, because when I arrive at the aircraft, I've already got an idea of where we are and so on. And yes, we would brief it once we're set up, but the basics are already in your head, because obviously you know where you've found the airplane. So we're actually on the North Apron up here. This is Milan Linate, quite a short runway, a famous site of a very tragic accident involving fog and a business jet that taxied onto the runway. But yeah, we are going to taxi down Tango and then take off from the full length going north. They almost always use north-facing runways here. If we look at the departure charts, oh, there we go. The terrain is all off to the north, so it's not shown on these, but there's a lot of hills because you're pointing right at the Alps. But we're actually going to make our right turn round. We're going to head to Toliss. So we're going to do this Absim. Around we go to Toliss, above 6,000 feet. So we're actually turning away from the terrain straight away, and then we're going to head down to Ekpal and then carry on with our route. Why do I like this airport? Well, the arrivals are quite predictable. There's nearly always the same thing. It nearly always has relatively light winds and benign weather because it's protected by the Alps. It does suffer from fog, of course, but it's relatively well equipped for fog. And that's mainly a first thing in the morning, so you don't see it too much if you've headed there from the UK, but it can get very, very foggy. But yeah, so it's a really nice place. It's not as big and busy as some other airports, hence I like it. There are some airports that can be a bit more of a headache. I think the people in the Baron must be feeling rather sick, as Victor saying. I would agree with that. Okay. Wide Womble says, on current form, Alitalia lasts about 6 years. Restarted 2009, 15, and 21. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so those of you who are new, thank you for coming along. And of course, I'll just mention I do fly aircraft in the real world. It's my day job flying Airbuses, but none of this is going to be for any real world use. It's just to give you some context. But we'll chat about and we can answer questions about flying and flying airliners around as we go. Right, so they've changed this iPad around. So we have the similar things. If we go to our flight, here it is. It's quite clever. It just loads this all in from SimBrief, which is nice. There's the route. It's got a slightly different route because it thinks we'll do runway 18. They almost certainly will not. 0 fuel at 58.7. And yeah, so I'm going to load this into the box now, or when we powered up the airplane. And we need to load it on the fuel. The fuel is often loaded onto an airplane. It can be loaded without power, or just with the bus, maintenance bus. So it's often ready to go when you get to the airplane. You don't need it to be fully powered on, just some sort of electrical feed. So we needed a fuel figure of, oh, I've lost it now. There we go. Only 5.7 block fuel in the NEO, which is pretty good going. So 5.7, we're not expecting any trouble in Malta. So we don't need any more than 5.7 with the contingency fuel in particular. So I'm actually just going to go for 5.7 there and click go. I do it instantly because I've had trouble with that before. Not trouble, but delays. Okay, now let's go back to our flight. Let's head over to the power up. So we sit down. We're going to check the usual things. So landing gear lever down, wiper selectors off, master switch to norm, engine master's off, parking brake is on, though we haven't got any pressure, and we are going to turn on the batteries. clunk and clunk. Plane comes to life. External power on. Should of course check the radars off. But we know this one doesn't work. Very much broken. They really did change the flight plan, J-Bay. Yeah, it's changed a lot, and I've been away from this sim a little while. The cloud symbol in the fuel puts the blocked plan into sim brief. There we go. Thank you very much. So if I tick that, 5673, there you go. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep fuelers. They can't be that accurate. They can fuel. The Airbus fuel panel is on the outside. I don't think it's modelled here. We can go and check. There's only one. It's always in the same place. You can refuel the Airbus on either wing, depending on the fit the airline went for. So the fuel caps, you won't see them unless you do a walk around. Really, I don't think passengers, if you're ever doing, if you're walking around an Airbus to the back, you might see the fueler plugged in. It's somewhere around here, fuel cap, and it has a little arrow. It's got to be pointing forward, or it can come off, which has happened, obviously. But yeah, there's one on. Some airlines will have one on each wing. Some will have it on one wing only. But neither of them painted in these textures, sadly. But yeah, there is a fuel cap underneath there, and the fuel panel is here, but that is also missing in this model. But yeah, the fuel panel works within 100 kilos. If you set the exact fuel required on that panel, let's say we want 5.7, if you put 5.7 on the panel, you tend to be a little bit short of fuel. So most fuelers know this, and they set that, and then they'll just top it up, or you can set 100 kilos more to make sure you get what you actually asked for, because obviously it's not much fun going without it. Danjay Suresh, good to see you. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, Thea B, that plane's been spinning for a long time now. So we should see what happens. Apparently the weather API from Asobo is scheduled for sim update 10, says J-Bay. Should be nice for plane. That would be good if we can get weather radars. Yeah, I would appreciate it. Infinite224 says, hello 320 sim pilot, I was in the full motion simulator. The sim had different style GPWS callouts, similar to the ones of an A300. Any idea why? I know it's a dumb question, but I'm curious. Not a dumb question. It's a question I'd probably ask if I sat in that. I was in a full motion simulator. Different style GPWS. Are you talking about the rad-out callouts? The 50, 40, 30, 20? There are different fits of those. I must admit, once upon a time I noticed, and these days I don't. So, I'm not. If you mean I assume you mean the rad-out callouts. The GPWS fit does change depending on the aircraft. So the NEO aircraft have a different style GPWS. We'll talk about that as we go. But yeah, the old A320s have the older callouts. Aaron Hastings says, yeah, but it did have a different, slightly one. Mr. Martini says, does the pilot doing the walk around take a fuel sample? No, not at all. We can't reach the fuel tanks. They're too high up in the A320, and it's not considered necessary. The fuel's checked obviously before it's put on the airplane, and then the aircraft has enough systems to counteract that risk. Whereas it's more likely a GA plane getting water into the lines, and then the way it's sent to the engines, it's more likely that could cause an issue. So yeah, no, we don't have to take fuel samples. Thank goodness. If the fuel sensors are broken, there are some things we may have to do. Right, carrying on then. So we powered up. We could do set some screens on. Check the batteries. So they're charging at 8 amps and 1 amp. Let's go into our flow. So cruise supply, ground control, align. Oh dear, there we go. My scroll wheel still not fixed. I've had that for years now. Auto on because we're fueled. Nav lights on. Or put the strobe lights. Moving up, landing elevation is in auto. Air systems just left in neutral really. And then we'll turn off the battery, turn it back on. Check the charge rate isn't too severe. 8 amps is absolutely fine. And 4 amps. We're just checking they're not going through a charging cycle when we push back. Right, let's run let's not set it. Nope, that's not going to work. Let's see if I can find it's a bit of a stretch, that one. There we go. Right. No, it's not having it. There we go. That's all good. All as is needed to be. Very straightforward as ever, the Airbus. And just getting those, your steering is on. Standard instrument is aligning. Don't ever need to touch that on these aircrafts. The old ones you have to cage, but these ones you just don't. It's all very pleasant. Let's see if I can remember my controls. I'm using the Windwing A32NX today. That is locked. These are set up. I'm going to put the integrated lights on. I'm one of those people. I have the lights on even in daylight. Not everybody does that. That's something I like to do. But I don't know why. I just think it looks nice. The thing is, you can go into a cloud and it can go gloomy quite easily. Right, screens. Also, I noticed that if you load up this aircraft in sort of normal daylight, the screens tend to be sort of turned down halfway. In the real aircraft, any sort of daylight, they're typically turned all the way up. You wouldn't turn them down until basically nighttime. It's quite surprising. They auto-adjust these screens, by the way, in the real aircraft. So I think they do a little bit in the Sims. They will adjust their brightness based on if the sun's on them or not, just a little bit. So that's all good. And we're just going to set the QNH. There we go, 1011. Good. Okay. Integral lights always fill up for me, says RV. Yep, that's what I do. Danny likes delivery. Danny, 1996 Eater. Yeah, me too. Tom Corwin says, I accidentally squibbed the APU once when I was trying to do a test. Yes, easily done. But you can't... Oh, certainly on the engines, you have to arm the bottles. So you'd have to open it and then pull the button, and then it would arm the extinguisher. Certainly on the engines, that's how it works. So it's a risk, but hopefully mitigated by the design. But there we go. Right, that is all loading up. Let's jump into the box. GPS is primary. It's already coming to life. First of all, let's load it up first. So take it straight out of SimBrief. I love this feature. Thanks, Gabriel, for the subscription. Acupressure is insufficient. Do you have to use the electric pumps as Jaroslav? Great spot. So what would happen is, yes, is one answer to that. But of course, I don't want to run the yellow pump until I know the aircraft doesn't have anybody around it. Now that's, here I can just jump outside of the camera and say, okay, there's no one around it. But that may not be the case, and you can't always tell. What would typically happen, so we've got our fuel. If I go to services, see if we can call a baggage truck. It didn't arrive earlier. No, it's not going to do it. So in real life, what would likely happen is the baggage truck would come at some point now, and as soon as they use a door, the yellow electric pump will automatically run and power that up. So it's rarely an issue that we have to solve, but in this case we do have to solve it. So we've checked it's clear, yellow pump on. The only downside is it's going to run the PTU as well, so all the flight instruments get powered up, and there comes the accumulator. A great spot. Was there? Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. First discovery flight on Sunday. Can't wait. Enjoy it. Aaron says, I find the screens to be really dark in Microsoft Flight Simulator, quite hard to read even at full brightness. Seems to be a strange eye adjustment thing they put in for realism. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, they, like I say, full brightness all day, every day, until it's actually getting dark. That's typically what I end up with. So there you go. Right, accumulator's on. Turn it off again. You don't want to leave it on. Don't want to leave the PTU running. There we go. But remember, when the cargo doors are operated, that yellow pump comes on automatically, and it does not run the PTU. It's inhibited. It's very clever. James Cooper, good to see you, and thanks for supporting us so much. And James very kindly super chatted £20. That's far too generous, James. James says, finally our schedules align and I can watch you live again. Hope you're well. Let's have a great flight. PMDG 737 coming soon? ? So thank you so much, James. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate the donation, and you've supported the channel so much over the years. So very kind of you, and I'm glad you made it today. PMDG 737 is obviously the hot topic right now, which we do not have today. I do not have it as it stands. That's I don't have a preview copy. I have not been contacted or anything like that. So that's where we are at the moment. We'll see how it goes, but it could be like the DC6, a wait for release case where I'll be waiting with the rest of you, which is absolutely fine. It's entirely up to PMDG, of course, and it looks great from what we've seen so far, from the videos I have seen, and I am looking forward to it a lot. But yeah, so for now, sadly, we do not have anything to share with you on that. Right, so cruising 390, we're going to be, it's Eat Arrow is the call sign, Eat Arrow 308. And there's our route. So that is, we should of course do the aircraft status. Oh, that is out of date. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. So data, init A, flight plan. So here we go, departing from always, or nearly always, runway 36. And we have agreed on, this is again a proper puzzle, trying to get this to work. Tovsar 6 Juliet, leading to the ECPAL 6 Alpha. There we go. Tovsar 6 Juliet, leading to that's not worked at all. That is slightly disappointing. So we're going to have to find our own way there, which is absolutely fine. Normally this would now have the transition, but it could be to do with my database. Anyway, this takes us via Absem. Let's put the screen over here. So this takes us via Absem to Tovsa. Tovsa is here. And if we look at the transition, it'll be very easy to draw this on Tovsa to AppRiv. So let's put that in. It may not exist. AppRiv. Yes, I didn't realize the 737 was coming so close either. Kieti says, impressive work by PMG. I would agree. I would agree. Indeed, I am in the Phoenix beta. Yeah, which is all I can say on that. Right. Anyway, AppRiv and then Ekpal. Ekpal? Which should also be... Oh yeah, we don't need that because it's the first point in our flight plan. Let's download it. Clear that, clear that. And we can also put in the restrictions now that VNav works. So Tovsa 60, and then we need to be AppRiv above 100. So let's try that. So if I put in plus, I don't know if this is going to work. Oh, no, let me put in a slash. Then a plus 100. I have a VNav video for those of you interested. Okay, let's... It wants me to put it in specifically. Let's try that. Climb or descent. There we go. Let's see if that works. I haven't seen that message before. I don't know what that means, climb or descent. They have a different fit to obviously what I'm used to. Ekpal above 190. So let's get Ekpal, vertical revision, 190. Sorry, 195. There we go. Probably terrain related, but could be airspace related. It's a climb, I suppose. Above 195. There we go. I suppose it's could be talking about descents if you're putting in restrictions as well, but there we go. Okay, so that's all in, and then along the route we go down to Malta. Pretty short list of arrivals there. We'll do those once we're underway. Right, thanks again James Cooper for that very generous super chat. Really appreciate it, and I hope you're doing well. What would happen if you left the PTU on for too long, says Lucas? Nothing much. It used to overheat potentially if you lost the hydraulic system. No longer an issue, but it is it's just noisy, and you don't want the hydraulics to be powered up fully because it's just got flight controls that will be running, nodal steering that will be running, and all sorts when they're trying to connect things. So yeah, no, it's just not sensible. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but you could find someone expecting something to be depowered and then damaging it by accident. We don't need any RadNav, so it's time for an IP. But before we do that, we are going to jump into the ATSU. Oh no, comms AFC. Let's grab an ATIS. Is there an ATIS here? There is indeed. We've got a frequency as well. So let's see if we can get... It's not letting me... Oh no. There should be a little star there to tell you haven't done it yet. Or it's an option. But there we go. So we've got an ATIS on the way because they are here. We've done the inits. Hard to read those two airports. Easy to get them the wrong way around. And let's just do the weight and balance. Now, I should just do request. Board. 03856.8. That's what we wanted. So back to, we've done DIFSR init B. Put in the weights, 56.7. Block fuel, 5.7. 62.2 takeoff, perfectly reasonable. And I will grab the trip winds because it hasn't downloaded the winds. If the PG runs for too long, the dog will get tired of barking and get irritated. There you go. Exactly. Right, average wind component is +2. Tailwind +2. TL2. Good. 700 extra, and that's with 500 contingency. So, yeah, we're pretty generous on the fuel here. Nice to see all this working, I must say. Finally, then, performance. So, taking off, flaps, most likely 1. The reason I say that is it's 2,700 is a long enough runway. 2,400 is a long enough runway. You get to take off from the full length. It's not an inset threshold. There is terrain in front of you, but we're going to turn away from it anyway. So I can't see an issue with that. But let's lower the flex a bit to 60 degrees, give us a bit of extra thrust. And here comes some speeds, 130, 131. 135. Right, so we're all pretty much set up in the box. Coming back to the overhead panel, let's get the APU up and running. Let's get those integral lights on, as I was saying earlier. Probably get the dome lights on so it looks easier for you guys to see. Passengers are all on. I can't get rid of the GPU just yet. Let's figure out our climb. So we need to be above 4.6 at Absum and maximum speed of 210 knots. Our clean speed is 212 knots, we can see in the takeoff performance page. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to leave flap 1 out, basically. You could get away with, you could just clean up and fly 2 knots fast. I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world for 210 within 2 knots. It's, you know, nobody really flies or can't 100% guarantee that sort of accuracy. But there we go. Thank you very much for the raid. Come on, thank you for the raid with the party of 12. I hope you're doing very well. Thank you all for joining us today. It's always fun seeing raid. I haven't still trying to get my head around it as a thing. Okay, right. That is loaded up then. So yeah, so 212, so 210 knots here. Now that 210 is a magic number, those of you who've been watching the channel for a while or know the Airbus will know that, of course, on takeoff, as we pass through 210 knots, the flaps will auto-retract. The slats will stay out, but the flaps at the back of the wing will auto-retract. Some people don't like that. I'm fine with it. So I'd be quite happy to pre-select 210, leave flap 1 out, and let the flaps retract just for that turn, rather than accelerating and being 2 knots fast, because I don't see why we can't leave the flaps out for that turn. So let's do it. So what I'm going to do is go to next phase, and I'm going to pre-select a speed. Actually, I don't need to pre-select it, sorry. I need to check here. There it is. See the asterisk? That is the 210 limit. So you want to check that that is coded properly in the box. So it is at Absum, 210 knots, and then it will accelerate to 250 after Absum. So that's all good. The downside here is it's going to turn around the corner, and then it's going to accelerate. RuffyX and CC Davies, thanks very much for the follows. Yeah, so it's going to also accelerate in managed speed, so we just need to make sure that we are ready to retract the flaps after the Absum point. If we're looking out the window by that point, it will obviously accelerate anyway. Above 6,000 feet by top. So let's do, well, we're going to get a clearance soon. We have air traffic control. So it's probably time we get that. Let me just make sure. Oh, actually, I've just realised I don't have the avionics master switch. Oh, that's annoying. That's assigned to my other joystick. Does anyone know the default key command? I don't think there is one. I won't have to go without my radio panel. I will do it the old-fashioned way, which is how we started the channel. We're going to do it on here. Thanks for the subscription. Right, let's get the frequency. So first of all, our ATIS, did it arrive? Yes, you have to do this. Tedious clicking through in the real aircraft as well. Thanks, Roddy, for the follow. We'll print that. Thank you very much. So yeah, that is accurate. As unfortunate as that is. Here it is then. Victor. They've got Zulu. Lo and behold, runway 36. What is the QNH? 1011. Matches flight simulator. And what's the wind? 080140. So a bit of a tailwind, but only up to 6 knots. So worst case is a 6 knot tailwind. Absolutely no problem with that. Right. Let's see. Have I got the... Sorry, hold on. I'm having a bit of trouble. There we go, right. Good. Things I thought I had set up. QNHSB, yeah. Thanks, Checkpoint. That is the that is definitely my favourite key in Flight Simulator. The 320 startup procedure seems deceptively simple, says VG Jake. It is, and yet when I first got an Airbus in Flight Simulator, way before I was a licensed pilot, I struggled so much to figure out how to turn on the Airbus because it was so different to everything else. Page up. Should we try it? Yes, excellent. Well done. Thanks, James. You're far too generous and also providing us with the knowledge we need. So there we go. I've got my radio panel back. Thank you very much. Good. So next step then, we're going to go to ground 1218. Excellent. That's good news. It does make life a lot easier having the radio panel when you're trying to stream instead of clicking down all the time. Right, we are, I must get this right, Itaro 308. Itaro. Linate, ground, Buongiorno. Itaro 308, 320 NEO, QNH 1011, request clearance, Malta.
Itaro 308, Linate ground, I don't have a flight plan.
Roger, I will check that, thank you. Has SimBrief failed me now? I thought I filed one. ITY, yeah, that's all in.
Itaro 178, request push and start.
Itaro 178, push and start approved, facing east, QNH 1011.
Push and start approved, facing east, QNH 1011, Itaro 178.
Itaro 308, I have your flight plan ready to copy.
Yes. Ready to copy, Itaro 308. That's a relief. SimBrief
Itaro
didn't fail me.
308, clear to Malta via the Toliss 6 Alpha departure, ECPAL 6 Alpha transition, runway 36, initial climb 5,000 feet, squawk 5410.
Okay. Thank you. Itaro 308 cleared to Malta, Tosca 6 Alpha, ECPAL 6 Alpha, runway 36, squawk 5410, climb maintain 5,000 feet.
Itaro 308, read back correct.
Okay. Cleared to 5 and squawk. Let's move over here to get that right. 5410.
Alpha ground up 122 Alpha Juliet, request engine start.
Type 2 Alpha Juliet, startup approved, QNH 1011.
I do write down everything ATC tells me. That's the only way I do it. I have not done Hoppier cars yet. Yeah, my flight plan must have just expired, or I did a bit early. Kelpie, thanks so much for the $10 tip. Really very kind. Kelpie says, hey, I've been watching your videos a lot lately, and they brought me back to my passion for aviation. And I was considering it to be a career, but don't know the best way to become an airline pilot. My parents think the Air Force. Do you have any advice? 16, by the way. That's incredibly generous. Thank you for your $10 donation, Kelpie. Really, very kind of you. Really appreciate it, and I hope you're doing very well. That's a big question. It depends where you are. I think that was US dollars. So let me just see. Does it appear here? Yeah. So in the US, it's different to how it is in the UK and Europe. Air Force is certainly a route. My biggest I'd always push for airline cadet schemes. So a scheme that with an airline that you think is going to survive, if they're offering a scheme where you can get onto a cadet scheme before the airline, before you've even finished training, then you have a job lined up. Then that's obviously a very good place to start in my mind. So, but sadly, that's just such a big question. Things worth doing: checking that the medical situation. So figuring out now. So that's air coming for the passengers now, and outside of ground power. Yeah, figuring out now if there's any medical issues. I also would recommend going for a few flights in small aircraft, general aviation airplanes, maybe doing a few trial lessons, things like that. That way, if you do go for an interview for a cadet scheme with an airline, it will show that you're keen, and also it will let you know if you really do enjoy flying, because some people just hate flying in small aircraft. And that way you can also get involved in the industry, and you'll start to meet people. Doing any sort of work experience if you can, or that sort of thing at airfields nearby, that can often help as well. Just things to show that you are really keen. They want passionate people in aviation. The airlines will be looking for that typically. But when it comes to actual training and the route you should take, and whether the different ways you can get your license and the different licenses, it's very different in America to the UK, and I'm afraid I won't be able to help with that. But thank you very much for the $10 donation. Really appreciate it. Okay, so that's the AP bleed on. We can get rid of that ground power unit, and we can get underway. A full 40 minutes later, not the worst we've ever done. Not the worst. Right, let's run the before start checklists. So cockpit prep is completed, gear pins and covers removed, signs are on and auto. AIDs are in nav, fuel quantity is 57 and balanced. Takeoff data is set, BarRef 1011 is set, so that is us ready to go. Let me put performance page there, which is what PF would typically have, and let's call for startup. Itaro 308, request start.
Itaro 308, startup approved, QNH 1011.
Startup approved, QNH 1011, Itaro 308. Oh, yes. Oh, membership, thank you very much. Sid's wrong. So startup is approved. Before we do that, he said the 6 alpha. Where is it?
Alpine 22 Alpha Juliet, request taxi.
Alpine 22 Alpha Juliet, taxi of the point
X-ray.
Tango 1 runway 36 via Bravo and Tango.
5 Zulu.
Taxi holding point Tango 1, runway 36 via Bravo and Tango, Alpine 22 Alpha Juliet.
5 Bravo. I can't stand it when there's this many variations. I don't think it should be allowed. Is it here?
Itaro 178, ready for taxi.
Everyone's going to the left and I'll be sat here doing this.
Itaro 178, taxi of the point Tango 1 runway 36 via Bravo and Tango. Number 2 for departure.
Taxi to holding point 1, runway 36 via
20-3K.
Bravo and Tango. Number 2 for departure.
There it is. Thank you very much, hero. Right, slight difference. This one, above 850, not before then, so an even earlier turn, 1500 feet, round 25, 35. Yeah, it's just missing that waypoint. Okay, we can do that. So press a cross arrow to get through to the SIDS. And look for the 6 alpha. Please be in here. This will be slightly harder to code. There we go. Let's check it on here. Oh, that won't do it. We're going out via... Ah, here's the transition. Egpal. Right. Now we can have a check through. So out Linate, Delta 048 Bravo. So that's 2 miles on the 048. That's talking about this point here. It's got a restriction in. Should be above 1500 feet, which it is. Then at 18, we're on the 095. So 095 Charlie. It's about 3 miles away. And that should be above 25, which it is. And then we carry on to ATGAM above 35. So that's good. We can also check. We're going to make those restrictions with the magenta asterisks. From ATGAM, we go to COD and TOVSA. So there's the COD, Codogno, NDB, and then TOVSA above 6. TOVSA, APRIP, ECPAL, which we've already discussed earlier. So that's looking good. Also, big picture on the navigation display. That looks correct and matches our chart. Right, we're cleared for start. So let's do it. Beacon on. Thrust levers are at idle. Windows doors closed, transponder to auto. And we're going to say windows doors closed, beacon is on, mobile phones off, thrust levers idle, parking brake is set. Let's start up the engines. So we would call the ground, tell them what we're going to do. Ignition, and we're going to do both engines today because I've done single engine several times on the channel and I never fail to find it completely overloading when you're doing it on your own whilst taxiing. No, this isn't the fly-by-wire checklist. That's a great point. We'll start at the engines. We'll talk about the checklist when we get underway. Good point. Very thing. Can you all hear the sim? Can you hear the engines? It's probably going to be too loud in a moment. Excellent. Great sound effects as ever. And that is up and running. It's got a bit of a bug with the oil pressure at the moment. That shouldn't sit so high, of course. There's a veil. Let's start up engine 1.
Alpine 22 Alpha Juliet, contact Linate Tower.
So, Light says we've had many flights and all of them are normal. We could have an engine fire or something just for a change. So, believe it or not, we have had failures on streams. We've had unplanned failures in the Toliss, which has the facility to do that. We haven't, you're right, we haven't done them in Flight Simulator, and I haven't done them for a while because we see the Toliss a bit less as we share it out with the other aircraft. So certainly something to consider for the future, no doubt about it. I have done videos on emergencies as well if you'd like to see those, but I can understand that there is an appeal to watching me sweat on a live stream doing an emergency procedure. I love that little sound effect at the end there. They've really got that spot on. Let's have a window view. Right. That's worked. That's available. Back to norm.
Itaro 178, contact Linate Tower on 118.1 chop.
No longer required APU. That's off. Don't need the engine anti-ice. Arm 0, flaps to 1. And we'll set the trim accordingly at 24.6. That bug's still there. That goes this way. There we go. Slides our arms. We're ready for taxi. So after start checklist, anti-ice not required, ECAM status checked, pitch trim 24.6 and 0. That is the after start checklist complete. Good evening, Gowden. Not a red jet, but a pretty blue that is. It is indeed something. So thanks for joining us, Gowden. I hope you're doing very well. And great to see you here. 2 says face reveal. We need the Concorde. Right. Itaro 308, request taxi.
Itaro 308, taxi holding point Tango 1 runway 36 via Delta and Tango.
Taxi to Tango 1 for 365 Delta and Tango, Itaro 308. Thanks, Pizza Racer, for the follow. Right. Nose lights on. APU spooling down. Clear on the right. Clear on the left. Brakes released. Clock running. Let's go. So Concorde stream. Yes, I still need to do a Concorde stream. I will do it before 60,000 subscribers. It will not replace the 60,000 celebration if we get there. So yeah, I understand it's taking far too long. As I say, I've been struggling to get the videos and streams out. So if I can just get on top of those, which is, I think we're getting there a little bit, then I will sit down in that Concorde and make some progress with it. I know I've said that for months now, and yeah, in the words of Internet Historian, you fell for it, but I really had the best intentions and I will keep trying. We will do it. Okay, so just to show you where we're going, this is Delta in front of us. It didn't give us, it just said Delta Tango. It becomes Delta Zulu Tango, so I'm going to go Delta, I assume Foxtrot Tango, but I will confirm that. Itaro 308. Do you want us to take Zulu or Foxtrot onto Tango?
Itaro 308, you can turn right on Foxtrot and continue on Tango.
Foxtrot to Tango. Itaro 308, thank you. Okay, I will read those messages, and that's very kind donation shortly. I just need to see it from above. There we go. So this is going to be Foxtrot, and then that's going to be Tango. So we need to turn down here. Once we get on the main taxiway, we can run the checklist. There goes our colleagues in front of us. Ryan says, no worries, looking forward to the Concorde stream. Yeah, me too. I am looking forward to it, I promise. It's just so different. So many things to consider. But I think I'm going to have to accept that I'm not going to get everything right and just enjoy it. And maybe we'll, yeah, that would be a better way to do it, rather than obsessing over getting every detail of flying Concorde, because it's got so many things so different to what I do every day. Chickpoint says at some point we'll just make it a running joke. Yeah, pretty much is at this point. George Lumpkin, good to see you. It has been a long time. I hope you're doing very well. Thanks for joining us. James would also like to see me see a helicopter. I know Hayden is very keen for me to try out a helicopter. I have not yet got any installed in Flight Simulator. My main concern has been the controls. I do have one installed in DCS. That's all I'll say on that for now. So thank you, Sam, for the $1 donation. Really appreciate it. Sam says, my Microsoft Flight Simulator is crashing all day today. It keeps crashing on the startup loading screen. I already tried to reinstall and load without mods and still crashing. Please help. I wish I could help, Sam. I had trouble like that just before my last stream, hence I changed it to an X-Plane stream. All I can say is, if you remove the mods, which is what I did, I removed a lot of the community folder to make sure there was no risk of that, and then it stabilized a bit. So I do have to clear out the community folder every now and then. Other than that, I really don't know how to help you. I am sorry. Obviously, try starting it in safe mode and see if you can figure anything out, like in the settings perhaps, that are causing problems. Checkpoint says, sometimes just having fun is more important than having everything in perfect detail. Lowy, Innsbruck that is, was a load of fun and very informative with the follow-up. Thanks, Checkpoint, appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that, and I enjoyed the second video as well. Yeah, Ed, the Apache is the only helicopter I've got, so there's not many tutorials. That will certainly be a Twitch-only stream if and when I get around to that as well. I feel a little bit bad doing that whilst Concorde is sitting in the hangar. James would like helicopter streams simulating helimed missions out of East Midlands. There's another idea. Yeah, another idea indeed. Right, let's run the flight controls. So, full down, full up, neutral. Full right, full left, neutral. And then we'll slow right down, do the rudders, full right, full left, neutral. And then of course the other pilot would do it again, which is why when you're a passenger you'll see all of this done twice. Actually we're making a right turn, aren't we? So let's put that camera back to where it was. There we go, I think that'll be the best view. Good. Right, we're getting in the way of air traffic control if I'm not careful. So, engines are definitely warm. We've been running for 4 minutes. Or we've been taxiing for 4 minutes, I should say. So we've done the flight controls. Let's check the brief. So we're going to make a turn right above 1500 feet on the, I've forgotten the name of this departure now, the 36 Alpha, sorry, the Tofsky 6 Alpha departure. No speed limit on this one as such, so that does help. We'll just clean up like normal, because of course, there it is. Oh no, sorry, there it is. It is just round the turn, 850, so it must be an earlier turn, hence the speed limit no longer a problem. So we'll clean up as normal, climb up to 5,000 feet, and we've obviously got high terrain to the north, so turning south is ideal for us, with some high MSAs as we get en route, so we need to be careful to continue our climb if we're not visual, which we're probably not going to be. We'll go into cloud quite quickly. Other than that, we are underweight, and what I can do is, where the radar doesn't work, TCAS to TRA, maximum on the auto brakes. Oh, and I'll tell you what, did I on the ground spoilers? Yes, we did. Good. Just the cabin to go.
Guitar 308, contact Linate Tower, and thanks for flying in Italy. Bye-bye.
Linate Tower, and you're very welcome. Thanks for looking after us, Itaro 308.
And I forgot the frequency, 118.1, bye-bye.
181, thank you, Itaro 308. Perfect, I was just about to start clicking around trying to find that. Some airports do that though. It's not uncommon to not be given the frequency if they have it written on the chart, and it'll say something like contact tower when advised, and then that's the excuse. Okay, so we're ready to go. The auto brake is a bug with my hardware, sadly. I'm clear to Tango 1, which is round the corner. I'm using default taxiways, by the way, as you can see, hence a lot of clutter with the lights and so on. This is one of the problems with default Microsoft Flight Simulator airports. Tower Buongiorno, Itaro 308, Tango 1 ready for departure.
Itaro 308, Tower, very good evening, 136, clear for takeoff, wind 100 degrees 6 knots.
Clear for takeoff, runway 36, Itaro 308. Perfect, that's what we expected. Tango 1, clear on the left, clear on the right. Let's get all the lights on. Everything on. Thank you, Jib, for the subscription. And let's run the before takeoff checklist. Flight controls are checked, flight instruments are checked. Briefing confirmed, flaps config 1% green, and check it matches what we wanted, config 1 blue. F-main takeoff data, I've got 130, 135, climb that blue 152. Climbing up to 5,000 feet, we're going to flex of 60. Transponder is TARA, ECAM memo. Sadly not working, but it should be. Oh yes, of course, predictive engine needs to come on. Well, it would be takeoff no blue if the auto brake would work, so it would be manual brakes if we have to reject. Cabin is secured, engine mode selector to norm, TCAS, TARA, and packs are both on. That's the before takeoff. checklist complete. So there we go. We are ready to go. That's a little bit aggressive. Up into the clouds, but the weather doesn't seem too bad. Let's us go. So these days we start the takeoff stopped in the 320. Once upon a time we didn't. We'll go to 50% on the N1s. It's actually a slight tailwind, so it's going to be full side stick down. Really careful to let the engine spool up together here. And of course, PM would start the clock. There we go. Brakes released. Gently accelerating the engines. And then now we can set takeoff thrust. The idea there to make sure they accelerate at the same rate. Manflex 60 SRS runway. Auto thrust is armed and blue. So it's full side stick down because of that tailwind. It's coming from the right. And then the same process, 80 to 100 knots, releasing it to neutral. So there's side stick neutral. V1, rotate. As soon as the nose gear is off, we can release the rudder, let the aircraft weathercock, positive climb, gear up, nav. And that's a tailwind takeoff. There are some specific numbers about spooling up the engines, but the main intent is that you don't want them spooling up asymmetrically or it will drag you off the side. And believe me, it can happen. They will spool up separately in a strong crosswind. It's quite surprising. Right, there's the first turn. Round we go.
Tower 308, nothing for monitor Unicorn 122 the simulate. Have a nice night, bye.
12280 Tower 308, thanks for your help, bye bye. Round we go, just a quick wing view. Look at that. Unbelievable graphics, as ever. So, we're above AA. Thrust, climb, auto thrust. Notice that in the NEO engines, there's not much of an engine change. In the CEOs, the takeoff thrust to climb thrust, you'd feel the engine spool down when you're at a maximum flex, even then. Whereas in the NEOs, if you're at a high flex, you'll find that the engines do barely change as you go to climb thrust, if at all, so you don't notice a difference. Above S-speed, flaps to 0. I'm enjoying flying. Let's keep going for a little bit. Around the turn. Starting to pick up a bit of a climb. There's the airfield. So we pointed away from the terrain, which is in front of us, and we're entering the cloud layer. I love the new LNAV system. Working very nicely in the A32NX. Okay, now I need to put in an autopilot really, because we need to raise the altitude. So there's autopilot 1, and we're going to cruise up at 390. So I'm just going to put that in the window. It gives us more time to chat, as there's no air traffic to bother us. We're going to set standards, which is in, and of course the flaps went to 0, so we can disarm the speed brakes, get rid of nose gear lights. You'll notice some airlines now will turn off the landing lights as well at this point, because they stick out in the airflow. And by doing that, you could argue we're saving a bit of fuel. Now that they're folding away, there they go, and tucked away nicely. I would question how much fuel it actually saves. This is indeed live weather. Evening to Georgie McShort Shorts. Good to see you here. Jib, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Long time listener, excellent. Right, after takeoff, checklist landing gear is up, flaps are at 0. Packs are both on, DIRF is on standard. That's the after takeoff checklist complete. I'm going to close my clock, which is my cue that the flaps are retracted. It's just something I do, that's not a procedure. And, oh, sorry, there we go. I do not use an autopilot panel at the moment. I do not. I have seen there are some Airbus ones out there for simulators, so I should try one really. But they can be quite pricey. Sim is looking amazing as always. I do totally agree. Twitch Partner Sports says, aren't landing lights under flight level 100 not mandatory anymore? No. It's essentially the answer to that question. You don't have to have landing lights below flight level 100. They only work when you're pointing at the aircraft, so only planes in front of you see the landing lights. However, if there's any reason I think that there's aircraft around that need to see us, I will have the landing lights on. The point would be, in Class A controlled airspace, the chances of landing lights being the thing that allow aircraft to separate from each other is almost 0. That would be the argument against it. So therefore, saving fuel is a more practical use of them, by getting rid of them out the airflow. But if you go somewhere where there's general aviation around or gliders nearby, then it's probably a good idea to have them out and on, I would say. But it's not mandatory. sim. Oh, it's just unbelievably pretty as ever. Typing Squirrel says, I flew on a Logan Air ATR from Birmingham to the Isle of Man recently, and at the end of the flight I asked the crew if I could have a look in the cockpit, and it was amazing. What's your opinion on the plane? The ATR 72 Typing Squirrel, it's a very popular plane. I've never flown one, but people like hand flying it from what I understand. The downsides of the ATR over the Dash 8 Q400, which is what I flew, is that it's not quite as powerful and not quite as practical. It doesn't have its own APU, for example, so they run one of the engines if they can't get a ground power unit, things like that. So, but I understand it's quite nice to actually fly. The Dash was fine to hand fly, but it was limiting on landings because of the way that the gear was set up. Right, anyway, we're above 10, so passengers can go. We didn't have anything in the red nav, so I would clear that out if we did, if we'd hard tuned anything. Hard tuning means if I type in the nav aid and force the airplane to tune it. In the real aircraft, this would be full of nav aids that the airplane's automatically tuning, but you can override them. Good. And secondary, we can copy the active, but that doesn't work either. So there we go. Up to 390. Everyone's having a good time. Oh, I'm running behind on chat. The Garudan says they're bringing out a completely new light system to save fuel. Are they? Is that the Airbus? Lauren B says landing lights out below 10k is mandatory in the US. Some operators want the wing lights on below 10k too. There you go. There you go. So wing lights are, they're something we rarely use. They're there. These wing lights are here. They point at the wings and light them up a little bit so you can check for ice mainly. Now the simulator shows the wing lights. Oh, it doesn't show them at all. It shows them when you zoomed in. Yeah. So the wing lights only show up from sort of this angle because they point back at the wing. They don't show up. I don't know if you can hear me out here. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me when I'm in the outside view. But yeah, the wing lights don't show up very well from a lot of angles. There's nowhere in Europe that requires their use, or that I'm aware of anyway. Maybe in the time I would consider the wing lights would be fog. If you're taxiing an airplane around on the ground in fog, then having wing lights on is just another thing to highlight you, because you can taxi on the next taxiway over in some thick fog and not see the airplane that's there. It's amazing. So yeah, so wing light. In Europe, wing lights in the air, no rules, and it's not actually that useful for looking at ice in the 320 family because that's where you can see the wing anyway. And the 321 you won't see it at all, or you can just about see the sharklet. So there's no point looking for ice on the wings of a 321. So the lights are still there, but they don't really do much except light them up for the passengers. James Cooper, thanks so much, James, for the £10 super chat. Really appreciate it. James says, if commercial supersonic flight does indeed return like it's rumoured to, would you consider applying for training, or are you happy with the Airbus? Great question, James. Thanks so much for the £10 donation again. Incredibly generous of you. Really, really appreciate it. Absolutely. But I suspect I would be in a huge queue of people trying to go supersonic. So yeah, I would love to, but I doubt I would get a chance. It will be very, very, very small number, unless it becomes the next big thing. But I can't see that happening, especially, for example, in Europe, where you're never going to go supersonic over the European continent, because it would just be deafening for everyone on the ground if every one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of airliners above their heads were causing sonic booms. But yeah, but I would certainly consider it, James, and I would. I absolutely love the Airbus, but I would have no issue moving on to try some supersonic stuff. Ahmed says, how do I calculate the stab trim? That is available once you've loaded up the weights. You don't need to calculate it. It's in here as 24.7. That's where I get it from. Gross weight CG, centre of gravity, 24.7. So all I did after start was put 24.7 on this wheel. By scrolling it to the CG, you can see there 20, and I went to 24.7, which is there. That girl says, happy to catch the live stream. Happy to have you here. Thanks very much for joining us. Caffeine says, finally able to catch the stream just in time to watch the climb. Thanks for joining us, Caffeine. Hope you're doing very well. Gurkhan, hello to you. What can you say about the capabilities of Flybywire model in SOP procedures? It's getting very good. We will talk about the checklist that they provided, but yeah, it's getting there. There's some things in the box still missing, but it's always improving. You can have a good, for free. I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's not many airliners this detailed for free, if any, except for the Zebo mod in X-Plane. So I think it's excellent. And you know, I wouldn't fly this as add-on routinely on the channel if I found it frustrating. You'll notice when Microsoft Flight Simulator came out, we didn't fly it on the channel at all for months until we had something we could use. So yeah, it's not something I would enjoy doing, and I do enjoy the A32NX. So hopefully that gives you some idea. Duncan says, loving the stream with my 3-year-old. It's time for his bed. Any chance of a good night, Teddy? Would be lovely. Absolutely. Good night, Teddy. Sleep well. Try not to wake up too many times overnight. Poor Duncan needs to sleep as well. Good night, Teddy. Indeed. Johnny, I couldn't possibly answer that question. Etty Gaming says, hi Captain, I was wondering what does SRS mean on the PFD? Sorry if you answered before. Never have to say sorry. SRS stands for Speed Reference System. That comes on takeoff instead of, it's the vertical mode, so it sits in this vertical column, and it's only until you go into climb mode that it gets overridden after you accelerate the aircraft. SRS is Speed Reference System. What it does is it will target a takeoff speed of V2 plus 10. So the flight director pitch will move up or down according to, you'll have takeoff thrust on the engines, and it will move the pitch to try and maintain a speed of V2 plus 10. So if you're fast, it will raise the nose. If you're slow, it will lower the nose. The reason it's called Speed Reference System is it's a bit more dynamic than that. If you have an engine failure, it will also adjust that to be V2 or the speed at which the failure happened. So it will target a different speed. So it's very good, very reliable. The only problem with it is immediately after takeoff it's a little bit sensitive. You have to be careful before adjusting to it, but once a few seconds in the air it becomes a very useful, if not perfectly or very accurate tool. But yeah, great question. Oh, I'm sorry, I am missing some chat things as they get disappeared into the ether because I'm running behind as ever. But thank you all for joining. If you are watching on YouTube, do please leave a like. It makes a big difference to the channel. I really appreciate it. And there'll be more coming. We'll be flying the PMDG when it does come out. And we've also got other airliners that we look at, and more guides and videos on the channel all the time with some previews. And I've got some more approaches I want to film and talk about on the channel. So yeah, and more live streams, of course, which we've been running a little bit light on lately. Lauren Reed said, controller said, Adria 55, start reducing speed. Speed is no advantage. You're behind an ATR. There you go. Yeah, ATRs do run a little bit slower than the Dash as well, I think. Dog says, do you know why Airbus choose to implement extendable landing lights instead of integrating them into the wings? No, I'm sorry. I don't know the reason behind it. Because it's a lot of mechanism. They're amazing bits of design, the landing lights. There's no speed limit on them. They can be put out at any speed and sit out at Mach decimal 7.8 in the cruise, no problem. So that must have taken a lot of engineering and weight and mechanisms. That's how they went for. They obviously decided it was better to do that than try and compromise the leading edge of the wing or integrate them in there. Could be to do with internals of the airplane, fuel systems, panels, repairability, all sorts of things they'd have thought about. Light says, have you had a failure in real life? I have indeed, but relatively minor. And there we go, Lauren B explaining why the landing lights need to be on below 10,000 feet in America. It's for trying to get GA planes who may not be talking to ATC to have a better chance of seeing you. We have a lot more uncontrolled GA in the US. That would explain it. In Europe, a lot of airliner flying is done in very heavily, not completely controlled airspace. So apparently Eurowings got some A320 NEOs with all the lights in the base of the wings. I have not seen that, including the taxi lights. Very good. I'm going to have to look that up. Very interesting. I have not seen or heard of that. Kelpie says, is your PC overkill for Microsoft Flight Simulator? Probably a little bit, yes. I don't need an RTX 3080, but it does help. My processor is now starting to look a little bit old. I would love to get the new Intel i12, 12 series, but I'm scared of adjusting my computer and not breaking it. And so far, it runs Flight Simulator just fine, so I think I'll leave it as it is. Do you prefer yoke or side stick? There's two things. I like the side stick a lot, especially when coupled with the normal law of the 320. But there are times when a yoke is good fun. However, for day-to-day, if you told me you're going to sit and fly commercially, passengers around, then give me a side stick any day. Quite happy with that. Gives you a lot of space. Jaden says, would you consider making a video about dual cooling for warm engine starts, or the LEAP equivalent if there is one? I'm always starting from cold and dark, so never knew about it. I've done it once on a stream, Jaden, but somebody had to tell me how to do it. I wasn't aware. If we're in the Toliss soon, maybe we should take the Pratt & Whitney engines for a spin, and we can do that. Yeah, it was on an old stream, but I'll have a look. I think it was the preview stream of the NEO. Keith says, did you plan for the tailwind route? I didn't purposely plan it, but it's nice to have. Typing Squirrel says, I'm starting gliding soon in Oxford. Do you think this is a good way to become an airline pilot? It's a perfectly fine thing to be doing, and if you enjoy it, that's great, and it will show that you have an interest in aviation. It doesn't actually count towards your hours at all, I don't believe, for commercial flying, but even so. Mr. Martini says you should still consider giving the Flybywire team a donation. There you go, because yeah, they are doing an incredible amount of work. Saunders says, does anyone know the approximate release date of the Just Flight 146? I can't wait to fly it on so many different routes. I can't wait, Saunders. I'm waiting for the next version of the 146 so I can show it off in a video. We've done a stream so far, and I did that London City approach, which I hope you enjoyed. But yes, I believe it's coming out later this month, I believe. Oh, but I don't want to say that and then be wrong. Dave says, what's your opinion on the PMG 737? Have you seen the previews? Yes, I've seen some. It looks excellent, as you'd expect. I mean, their DC-6 was excellent, is excellent, so I expected the same from the 737, their sort of flagship product, and yeah, it looks great. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. What's this mod not got that you would prioritise as a development, like a game changer that would make you excited? It's getting hard to think of things for that. I get asked that question a lot about the A32NX. I'd like to see independent FMGCs, so I could have different pages on the two. I'd also like to see, we have the fixed info page now, which is great, but I'd like secondary flight plans as well. However, both of those sound very trivial because they sort of are. They don't really matter to the simming experience, I wouldn't say, and that's a sign of how far this mod has come. The sounds are great, the handling, it feels great, it flies really nicely, and that's the key thing here. Typing Squirrel says, how are you? I hope you're well. How many flights per day? I'm doing well. Flights per day varies a lot and also depends on the airline, so I won't quite reveal that. Ah yes, there we go, Matthias is quite right. RNAV, I want to see RNAV approaches, so or non-precision approaches. I want it to be able to fly in final app mode. That's what I'm waiting for. Doesn't do that yet. Typing Squirrel says, in real life, do you have a takeoff performance calculator? Yes, you do. Dave says, I wonder why the A320 has 2 landing light switches, but the 330, 340 only 1. Yes, it's an interesting point. One reason could be, in the 340, do the lights fold out? Because in the 320, they fold out. Therefore, if one of them's broken, let's say the right hand landing light is broken and sealed closed, then we can just use the left one. On an airplane where the lights are not folding out, it won't matter because it won't be folding in and out anyway, so if you had one switch and it turned on but the bulb doesn't come on, who cares? But what you don't want is it folding in and out when it's not supposed to be, when it's broken and you're operating under the MEL. So that could be, but that is a bit of a guess, and we should never guess. Thanks, Monster, for the follow. Aaron's looking at the Eurowings landing lights. Oh, I need to check this. James from my processor is saying, go for an AMD 5800. Outperforms a 12900 on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Really? I didn't know that. I thought the 12900 was the new benchmark. Blueberry King, good to see you over on Twitch. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming along. I'm doing well. Been doing a lot of flying, which has been great. My NVIDIA settings, and I just use Ultra in Microsoft Flight Simulator for the settings, and 1440p resolution, which is also what I stream at. But sorry, I stream at 1080, but my software takes it in at 1440. JB says, I was planning to wait until the 737-800, but after seeing the streams, I'm probably going to grab the 700 on release. Ah, so I see. So the PMDG are just releasing the 700, is that right? I didn't know that. Rudy says, hello Cap, happy to finally have a chance to see you live. I noticed that the blades of the 320 NEO engine stop rotating super quickly after shutdown. Is it realistic? We'll have a look. Please try... Well, actually, we won't be able to have a look. We never do shutdowns because of the way the replay tool works. But I will have a look at that. Ask me again next stream. Or in a comment somewhere. I'll have a play and see what I think. Yeah, it's just so good at the Sanders livery. Outrageously pretty. So here we go then, coming up to level off. How do you get a confident British pilot voice this type of drill? That's just that's part of the training. Part of the training. Rudy says, happy to finally have a chance to see you live. I noticed... Oh, sorry, we've done that question. Right. Anyway, Mac out cruise. There we go. So top of climb. We can set the TCAS from above to below, so it shows us the traffic beneath us. It's not showing us any traffic at the moment, so clearly it's all too far away. And we can do a systems check where we go through all. So still, this PSI would probably show up as an ADV, an advisory. Sorry, down here, but sorry, no, up there. Yeah, advisory. But anyway, it's not model at the moment. But you can just press all and cycle through. The real aircraft, by the way, doesn't do that. So if you click on the page, it wouldn't be amber and then suddenly spring to life. It would be straight away there. Just a different way of generating it, I suppose. Hopefully we get fuel temperatures soon. Another tiny piece of trivia like that. See the way it pops in. All looking good. Fuel-wise, we have burnt 1.5. We left with 5.7, so that'd be 4 plus 1. 4.2 plus 1.5, lo and behold 5.7, so that's adding up, and that should give us enough to get where we're going. We've used a little bit of our extra fuel, but that's keeping... Oh, first officer's joining us. Yeah, it's not convinced about the fuel. Obviously we're overburning slightly compared to what it originally planned, although I think the fuel page isn't quite accurate. Here it reckons that we're arriving with 1.5, flight plan reckons 2.7, which would make more sense. Oh, yeah, the first officer is determined to join. I'll try and get her to say hello, but no doubt she's got the attention she was hoping for. Hello? You gonna say hello? Have you made all that noise? No? No? Ooh. She's busy falling over. Go on then, sit down. There we go. Okay, first officer, for those of you who don't know, is my cat, who regularly makes a lot of noise on the channel. Sits down at the most inconvenient moments and generally helps out with the flying. Okay, sorry, I've run behind the questions. You guys are very active. Thank you all for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I apologise that I'm running behind. I might have to jump ahead. Brainerd says, how does VNAV and LNAV feel on the 321X? Haven't used it in over a year. Well, you'll see LNAV is much improved, and that's why I like flying it again. They've made their own lateral navigation, and it's such a joy compared to what we used to have. It's not perfect, it's not as good as the Toliss LNAV system, but it's very good. It's usable. The VNAV is in its early days, so we will see how that comes. Lushdash says, do you sometimes just extend the landing lights without turning them on for drag purposes? No, if you put the... No one... We do extend them for drag purposes. Like, it's a bit of a... It's like a placebo. We think it makes a difference when we're high, so we'll put the landing lights out, usually only below 10,000 feet anyway. But whether it makes much of a difference, I highly doubt. But we'd just turn the lights on as well. Other than that, no, we don't use them for any other purpose particularly. Gonzo says, what's the difference between selecting approach on the MCDU and pressing approach on the top? They're two totally separate things. Pressing approach in here is just to tell the airplane that in managed speed mode I want to slow down. So if I press approach now, activate approach phase, it will automatically come back to green dot, and then as I put the flaps out, it will slow down to each speed all the way back to the V approach coded in the approach page, which isn't in there yet, currently 128, sorry. Pressing approach up here is to tell the airplane to either fly the ILS, capture the localizer and glide slope, or to capture final approach path for the non-precision approaches, which is not yet modelled in the A32NX. Totally separate things. This one, all it does is tell the airplane that you're trying to slow down, and it changes the speeds it's going to fly. It just basically just changes the speed target. That's all it does. So Matteo says 700 first, then 600. Sorry, I'm missing it. 700 first, then 600, then 800 and 900, says JB. Okay. Well, so that's why I've noticed that they all seem pretty short, all the 737s we were seeing. 700 and BBJ initially, rest up shortly after. Okay. Ahmed said, how do you know how many flaps to use on landing? I have a video, Ahmed, called Flaps 3. If you search 320 Sim Pilot Flaps 3, I talk about it in that video. As Sandro says, you're flying from my home city. Shame I missed the takeoff. Oh, well, the replay will be there, but yeah, lovely city. I like Milan very much. Creme Brulee, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the live stream. Right, I'm way behind here. This is silly. I can talk too much. Sorry if I missed this. If I missed your question, do feel free to try again later. I'm just scrolling through. Warm, sunny destination to escape on holiday. In Europe, it's probably Greek islands. Hence, we do a lot of flights down to that part of the world on the channel. I do love flying to those. You really just takes me straight back to being a kid going on holiday. Thanks for those follows to Pete, Phantom, Marco, Monster. Matt says you need a yoke side stick cam so the FO can make guest appearances during streams. So, a while back, a long while ago now, before Christmas, I did buy a camera with the intention of setting it up for that. I have not quite found the right way to position it to get something that's of use or interest to you guys. But yeah, I think that's definitely on the cards. Something I need to get back in. It's a bit of a project I was working on that didn't get done. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, if you guys would like it, that's something we can definitely put more effort into making it happen. Vivbo, thanks for the follow. George says, where's your F1 thinking? Those landing lights will cost you at least half a tenth. Yeah, that's true enough. What is a blank open space to the right of the terrain on display button for? So that would be, if you press that on, it doesn't work at the moment, it would show you on the ND the terrain. So where the water is, where the high ground is, in green, and like a map. When it's off, the weather radar is what's shown, but neither of those work in this at the moment. I'm not sure why your ND is freezing, Juso. Sorry to hear that. JB says the 700 package does come with packs, freight and BBJ. This is PMDG. So that's good to know. Yeah, if you are watching, do please, again, sorry to say it again, but if you do hit the like button, it makes a huge difference to the channel. We really, really appreciate it. Elliot, flight's going well. Thanks for coming along. So thanks Stephen B. Appreciate it. That Serious Pilot, good to see you. That Serious Pilot says, hello from Bologna. I love the A32NX and I have that swanky A3XX side stick. Please stop suggesting stuff. Yeah, I'm using that side stick today, Serious Pilot. I'm a big fan. Ryan Lee says, hello Captain, I hope you're doing well. I have a question regarding your PC build. Did you go for water-cooled or air-cooled solution? I have an all-in-one cooler. The Corsair High, is it an H100i, something like that. It's got two fans, a radiator. I've set it up in an atrocious way where the radiator fans, the fans are not actually on the radiator. I'm using the case fans on the radiator and the fans that came with it as exhaust fans. But it's worked for this long. It runs quite cool, so I'm quite happy with that. But yeah, that's what I went for. Right, so we go. Flight time is not too long, it's about 1 hour 40. we're sitting without any sort of, just a bit of a light crosswind, which would tie in with the +2 we had in our minds. We're going to go past Rome shortly, but sadly, I mean, I really didn't expect this. I'm on live weather. I was hoping for sort of cavalcade. That's normally what you get around Italy. I'm quite surprised to see so much cloud. Saf says, why do you set the altimeter to standard after takeoff? So when you're cleared up to a flight level, so we're at flight level 390. It's not an altitude, 39,000 feet. It's a flight level 390. That's because it's a standard pressure setting. So everybody up here is flying around on the exact same pressure setting. It's 1013, which you can see here is slightly different. So this is left. This was the pressure setting where we were. This was the QNH 1011, and look at that. That's 38,760 feet. But here we want to be at 39. Everybody's going to be using the same pressure setting. That way, airplanes that have come from different regions with different pressure settings won't hit each other because we'll all be flying on the same reference point. So that's all it is. So you could say this is not as accurate. We are not actually at 39,000 feet above sea level where we are. We are probably a bit closer to 38,700 feet above sea level. But the idea is that we're all on the same setting, so it works better like that. So I'm going to set standard on there as well, because there's no point having an old QNH on it. Typing Screw says, do you like when people ask to see the cockpit, or does it invade your privacy? If people want to visit the flight deck after the flight, that's no problem at all, and we get a lot of that, especially on flights when people are going on holiday. That's obviously a more popular thing, and you get families, and of course it's absolutely fine. We love talking about airplanes and showing off the flight deck to people who are interested, so no problem at all. Just all I would say is it's nice when people ask before they take pictures, as opposed to just taking a picture of you sat there that you weren't ready for. And obviously some airlines may have different policies, but usually you can see after the flight. Usually before the flight things are busier. It should be dark now. I live in Malta and the sun has set. Indeed, I have done my usual. We are slightly rewound in time in order to enjoy the view a little bit. John, thanks for the subscription, and Ferris. Stephen says, I practice terrible cockpit behaviour. I set up a flight plan at the beginning of my day and work, take meetings in between. Currently over Iowa, flying from San Fran to DC. Well, when I was studying, I used to do the same thing. Yeah. I'd set up a 757 down to the Canary Islands and leave it there while I was sort of revising. Now here's a question I've never been asked. What do you prefer, flight deck or cockpit? I prefer flight deck because it seems more professional. I couldn't tell you. I tell you what I do like. If I'm talking to ground crews, if you can shorten flight deck and you just say flight, you can feel a little bit, tiny bit, like you're talking like the NASA controllers, who of course had flight guidance and so on, so they'd have flight. But yeah, flight deck or cockpit, I really don't mind, I must admit. Evening curved. Farah says, I'm planning on buying a new PC to play Microsoft Flight Simulator. What do you recommend? It's a tricky question. There's a lot of thoughts to go into it. And where I ended up was one way, and the market's changed since I built mine, which was, well, the channel's been going 2 years, so over a year and a half ago now. It feels like yesterday I built it. Nice to know they still haven't, well, there are some more powerful graphics cards, but I'm still pretty pleased with the one I've got. But I recommend a good processor, and I went with 32GB of RAM, which I have seen it use quite easily. However, you don't need it. You could do 16 and that would work as well. I mean, it just depends on your budget. It really does. It's a very hard question with a lot of different answers, I'm sure, and I suspect I'm out of date at this point. Thanks, Piston, for the follow, and Guitar for the subscription. Right. Checklists. They've added checklists to the FlyPad failures as well. Here's checklists. These are not comprehensive they won't even work like a instruction list, but most checklists don't. It's a different sort of thing. So, you know, cockpit prep, gear pins, covers, fuel. So if you did a cold and dark start, obviously this wouldn't be enough, you know. But I like it. It is a reasonable actual checklist. This is the sort of thing that would be on there. And look at this, you can tick it, and it even gives you the answer. Ticked, and then tick, 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 tick. So maybe I should start using this one. Park brake off. It's different to one we have been using. I don't like after such checklists that don't include the flaps, but fair enough. That is a perfect, you know, obviously it is a checklist. It's probably close to the Airbus one. This could be off, so you can have either there, hence the blank line. So next is the approach checklist. So let's have this ready to go. But yeah, quite nice, but definitely abbreviated. Not going to be instructions to fly the aircraft at all. Quite like sitting high in the seat as well in the cruise. Gives you a nice view out and down. But again, sadly, nothing to look at today. We are now just passing by Rome. What a shame. Checkpoint says I missed the coffee check on the checklist. Well, the coffee is checked before we even get into the checklist. It's too important to be missed or left until that late stage in the process, certainly. Gamia says, what country do you think you've flown into the most? That's a great question. The easy answer is going to be the UK, as that's where I am currently based. But otherwise, I couldn't say. I really couldn't say. You know, Europe, we have a lot of flying across the whole of Europe, so yeah, good question. Alessandro says, since when did A320s have winglets? Every time I fly, I never see one on it. So, Airbus made the A320. It didn't have winglets. It had what we call wingtip fences. They were those little ones. So still progress, because of course the 737 at the time, or before the NG, didn't have them either. Then they decided they weren't good enough, and they came out with a sharklet, which could be added to older aircraft and started to be fit to new released Airbuses. Sharklet 320. And now, of course, we're in a NEO, which has not only the sharklet but also the new engine. So all NEO aircraft have the sharklets, and up until they were building the NEO, pretty much all of the new 320s also came with sharklets. They're called sharklets by Airbus, but yeah, winglets is how you might know them otherwise. Alessandro says, A320s do not look good with winglets. I would disagree. I think they look quite nice. I think that works well. Agreed. I love the livery. List them in. Agreed. Light says, I wish airplane seats had massaging function. That would be nice. Sadly, they do not. But 320 seats, incredibly comfortable. Yeah, I have no complaints. And I sit in them for a long time. They are excellent. Really well designed. They've got adjustable tilt on the back. Then the headrest tilts forward and backwards. These headrests look quite big to me, but not sure. Then they've got lumbar support that pops in and out. Yeah, they're great. Really good. I just wish the armrests were padded. They're just hard plastic. Grilled Toaster, thank you very much for the $5 tip. Really appreciate it. Grilled Toaster says, what do you find harder to land, the real airplane or in sim? Love your content, by the way. Grilled Toaster, thank you so much for your kind words. Really appreciate it. And of course for your very kind donation. Thank you so much. What do you find harder to land, real airplane or in sim? It's a great question. Most pilots find the full motion simulators harder to land. Why that is because it's not the same as the real airplane 100%. It's very close. It works perfectly fine for training failures, but it's just you haven't got the same view out the windows. It's slightly restricted. You're running on a collimated screen, which is what gives you the perspective, but it's not quite the same as the real 3D picture. So usually the actual full motion simulators are a bit harder to land than the real aircraft. Having said that, the aircraft itself has its catches and some days you think you've done everything right, you apply the technique as best you can, everything looks normal out the window, and then the landing just isn't that smooth. It sort of rattles on, or there was a bit of drift you hadn't quite noticed, and that can be hard. So if we're talking about flight simulator, what's easier to land? Well, in flight simulator all I do is I apply the same technique as I do in the aircraft. So about 30 feet starting the flare, some point before touchdown idle, remove the drift and land. The difference is in flight simulator, of course, all we've got to go on is how did the landing look, and we get the little readout. You guys get the readout. I don't see that until afterwards, but you know, that's not necessarily representative of if we actually have had a smooth landing or not. You could have a very low feet per minute touchdown in the real aircraft, but if you had loads of drift on, it's going to rattle and shake and judder, and everyone's going to think it's a really rough landing. Pure vertical speed heavy landings, sometimes in the real aircraft, you might have quite a high vertical speed comparatively. I don't know what it would be, but you might have a speed that is certainly not. You know, we have our own thresholds now in flight simulator lands, especially streaming lands, of what we think are good vertical speeds for landing. I don't know how that applies to real aircraft at all, but what I will say is you sometimes fall out the sky, but if you've got the drift off and the gear compresses properly, it can actually feel perfectly fine in the cabin. So there's more variables in the real aircraft, whereas in the sim you're just focusing on the vertical speeds. So I'd say the real aircraft for that reason. Having said that, I'll probably mess up my landing in the sim today. I will not probably be doing a face reveal anytime soon. QWERTY moves, sadly. I say sadly, I don't think it's a very sad thing. At the very beginning, says Etty Gaming, A320s didn't have winglets at all. That's a very good point, and I did omit to say the very first Airbuses didn't have even the wingtip fence. The very first, not many were made. But the A320-100 did not have it. Creme Brulee would like to be based in Glasgow. Very good. Lovely city. Alessandro says, talking about winglets, they belong on Boeings, not Airbus. Airbus should have banned having winglets, it ruins the whole experience. I've never met anyone so passionate about winglets. But fair enough. George says, I think it's time I try and draw you into an F1 comment as a fellow Merc fan. Thoughts on the season so far? I'm pleased with Russell's performance, obviously with such a great name, that's. So George Lumpkin is trying to draw me into talking about Formula 1. We've managed to avoid it ever since Abu Dhabi last year. Okay, so those of you who don't know, I've said it before on the channel, I'm not ashamed to say that I do support Mercedes and Sir Lewis Hamilton in the Formula 1, and it's been a challenging start to the season for them, no doubt, but I'm always impressed, especially with the Mercedes team and the way they go about things, the way they deal with issues, and their ability to come back, and Lewis's ability to come back from some pretty tough situations and big performance gaps. They've done it before, and I'm keen to see what they achieve this season, whether or not they win any championships. And I can think back to certain races last year where Lewis was handed heavy penalties and so on for the wing, and I think over the weekend he managed something like, because of the sprint race, 24 overtakes, which is quite impressive. So anyway, but yes, it's obviously not much fun seeing that their car has been struggling at the start of the season, which they admit, and they have debriefs on their YouTube page which are very interesting to watch, where they talk about what they're doing and how they've been working out decisions and so on. Always very interesting. I find them really interesting to see the sort of the human factors side of how they operate at that team. and we only get a very small glimpse. I'm sure a lot more goes on behind the scenes. Typing Squirrel says, can the captain's seat recline? Yes, it can. Duke Point says, soon we'll just be sitting here for 5 minutes outside the plane enjoying that livery. Why not? 787 seats. I don't know if they have heating. I haven't heard of a pilot seat with heating built into the actual seat. There is heating built into... Oh no, I have heard of it. Usually deactivated by the time I get to see it. There are foot warmers on some Airbuses. That is a fit. And long-haul aircraft tend to have more comfort features like that than short-haul. Which I think is nonsense, because if the idea is that long-haul pilots need to be more comfortable because they're sat in the plane for longer, I can tell you now that short-haul pilots spend a lot more time in the aeroplane. A long-haul pilot, okay, they do a 12-hour flight, but they'll spend some of that not in the flying seat. They'll actually go off and have some rest somewhere else, and they'll swap with the third pilot if it's a long enough flight. Then they'll get off and they'll have to spend some amount of time down route before they're allowed to fly back, because they have to have a bit of rest. And then when they get back, they have to have more rest. Short-haul pilots can do a 12-hour day every single day, up to 6 or even 7 days in a row. So, you know, you tell me who's spending more time sat in the seat. That is my rant about why don't short-haul airplanes have heated seats and shoulder warmers like long-haul aircraft do, when we have to sit in them more. Alessandro says, I love Airbus, but winglets don't sit well with me. It's just very strange. That's great. No, if you feel like that, I can't argue. Etty says, I don't think the flight deck seats should have massage functions. Get too comfortable, especially in long haul. There you go. See, long haul is just getting too comfy. Right, I'm going to keep going. How real out of scale of 1 to 10 would you say the 32NX is? Says Birdman. It's really hard. I don't want to sound harsh or criticise it when it's freeware and they're doing a great job. I wouldn't know how to put it on 1 to 10 because I wouldn't know what I'd put things like the Toliss, which are obviously fully developed. So I'm afraid I won't be able to give you a good answer for that. It's very good though. I like flying it, and I've flown several Airbus, simulators, as well as obviously the real one, full motor ones, and I like flying. I like the way it hand flies, and I like the way it's behaving, but the lateral nav and VNAV is not perfect yet. Broadcast says, I am Dutch and I also support Merck and Lewis Hamilton. Not at all a fan of Verstappen. There you go. That must be quite a controversial statement if you went to a bar to watch Formula 1 in the middle of Amsterdam. Yaroslav says, could you please explain what the thrust idle and thrust des do? So, thrust des is something different, but thrust idle, it's just telling you that the engines are being commanded to go to idle. So in an open descent, that's what they'll do, but it will also say that if it does it in managed descent, whereas some aircraft will have it say thrust des. But anyway, it's just telling you what's being commanded. So it's worth telling us if it's commanding idle up here, because that would let us know that the engine should be at idle. If this didn't say thrust idle and the engines were idle, if let's say it always just said speed or Mach like it is now, but actually it needed idle thrust in the descent, then that could confuse us. We may not be aware that there's been a failure or the engine has rolled back or something like that. I don't know, something like that. So it's just an awareness thing. Right, I must thank you to Ed Hassan. Thank you for your £4.49 super chat. Really appreciate it, Ed. Very kind. Thanks for supporting the channel and coming along just so much and being a part of it. Ed says, great to hear that work is approaching normal again for you, and great to have another fascinating A320 live stream. All the best. Thank you so much, Ed. You've been supporting us and contributing to the community so much, so really appreciate it. Thanks for coming along, and thank you for your very kind donation, and I hope you're doing very well. And yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. Right, soon to be flying over Palermo, so we aren't too far off. Let me just jump into the chat. Michael says, do you have a preference in regards to engines on the short-haul Airbus, CFM or Pratt & Whitney? Is there any kind of difference? So you talk about NEO aircraft. It's quite rare to see Pratt & Whitney in the UK, so I don't have a preference at this point on the NEOs. No. Are you allowed to change from QNH to standard to local pressure at the start of descent? Great question. It's from Grom. You will change to local pressure when you're cleared to an altitude. So you'll stay on standard, even if you're So you'll stay on standard all the way down until you're cleared to an altitude, at which point, as soon as you're cleared to it, you'll set the local QNH, even if you're currently above the transition altitude. The point of the transition altitude is that that's the highest, it's actually a transition level. That's the lowest level you'll be cleared to before. Below that it's an altitude, and then you'll change to QNH. The Aerosteph says the hate in F1 community is just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't want any of that. I did not like things I did not like about Formula 1 last year was the booing and the jeering. I don't like that. That's not what I'm there for. I want just calm and enjoy it. It's a spectacle. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's people driving expensive cars in circles. We just need to enjoy it and be happy with each other. And you don't want a situation where fans see fans in different hats and get a feeling of resentment or anger about it. That's not the point. Everyone should be allowed to support whoever, and everyone should like everybody. That's why I see Formula 1. It's they all drive different cars, for goodness sake. So it's hardly a fair thing in the first place in that sense. George, talking about Formula 1 there, and the Mercedes team says, I think it's a huge challenge ahead for them, and it's going to really show how they climb. Look forward to it. Yeah, me too, George. Me too. He says, thanks for your Dash 8 landing video a while back. It's been really helpful. If you have any further advice for steep landings in the Dash, London City in particular. Great question, Lee. Great question. That could be a video, so I will have a think about that. I like the idea. There is a 65-year-old age limit for flying in the UK because you lose your medical after that, so you can no longer have it. So you would not be able to fly as a ATPL. Thank you again to Ed for your kind donation, and thank you, James, for your £20 super chat. James says, I'm about a year away from having the experience required for a HeliMed application. May fly by you one day. Have you ever had to go around or hold due to HeliMed or similar with alpha stages taking priority? James, thanks so much. Again, far too generous with your £20 donation. Really, really appreciate it. I hope you're doing very well. Thanks for joining us again, and thanks for supporting the channel so much. The question is, have you ever had to hold or go around due to HeliMed or similar? Yes, I have had to hold whilst, not specifically because of the HeliMed, but so HeliMed is the sort of emergency ambulance helicopter for those who don't know, and they will obviously take priority over normal traffic, which is absolutely as it should be. So, have you ever had to go around or hold due to the HeliMed? Yes, I've held just as part of the traffic. No, I don't think I've had to go around. It's less likely for alpha status aircraft to take a priority in that sense. I wouldn't expect to go around because of an air ambulance coming in. What I would expect is air traffic will see it coming and they will delay the arrivals if they need to. A lot of airports, by the way, can take helicopter traffic at the same time as landing aircraft because, of course, helicopters can approach from a different angle. They don't need to fly a 3-degree ILS. However, in bad weather, that may not be the case. But, more likely you'll have to wait at the side of the runway before you can take off, or you'll have to hold before you make your approach. But to send aircraft around obviously may not work because how much fuel have they got? Have they got enough fuel to go around and try again, or are they going to have to divert, etc.? No worries at all, Birdman. That's my pleasure. But yeah, so great question, James, and thank you very much for the very kind donation. So yes, I've held. No, I've not gone around, and it's relatively rare anyway. But yeah, exciting stuff, and I hope you get the chance to do the HeliMed if that's what you want to do. Yeah, I love watching the shows where they go and rescue people in the sea and so on, and on cliffs and things. Aaron says 320 continuing to deny the existence of the Airbus seat warmers. Yeah. Birdman says, on the real Airbus, do you tend to use open descent or managed or mixed depending? Perfect, you've answered your own question. Thanks, Birdman. Absolutely, a mix depending on the circumstances. I'll try and use DES typically, but open DES, if you get put on a heading, you have to use open DES because it won't work if you're not in nav mode. Sorry, normal DES won't work unless you're in nav mode. Right. GD says, if an airline approached you and said, we want to train you to fly a 380, would you go for it? Yes, I would indeed. Love the 380. Michael says, maybe a naive question, but if you're a pilot on a long haul and you're resting during the flight, I presume that doesn't count towards your flying hours, so you lose out even more on a long haul. Good question. I think it does. Ooh, I don't know. It's not something I've ever had to do, so I don't know the answer to that. Someone else in the chat might know. for the UK. Rich Adams, thanks for coming. Ryan E says, purchase the Brussels scenery today, is excellent. Yes, the Brussels scenery is out, and again, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend taking a look at my video because it's great. I'm really impressed, and I'm doing well, Ryan E, so thanks for joining us. The hatch in the roof of the ATR will be for evacuation sniping squirrel, because a lot of aircraft don't have sliding windows. We're very lucky in the Airbus. This is great for those turnarounds in hot Greek islands and so on, where you can open the window and get some warm local air, rather than just the hum or the noise of the fans and the air conditioning there. But some aircraft don't have that. Things like the Q400, the ATR, the 787, the 747 didn't have sliding windows. So on those, they often have a hatch, and that's in case you need to get out in a hurry and you can't get out the flight deck. Thanks, Richard B. Indeed, I cannot say who I fly for, as Richard B said. Thanks, J-Dog. Good to see you. Just in time for my rant about long-haul pilots. Dear. Yeah, that would be a bad time to let's give a bad impression. We're getting close to our descent. Do you fly any jets with HUDs, and if so, do you ever use them? No, I don't, sadly. I do not fly any jets with HUDs. Some early Airbuses did have a HUD fitted here, but I've never seen it simulated in a flight simulator. Maybe the FS Labs one does have it, I don't know. Jason Livia, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to answer that. If you're in South Africa, I don't know what the local policy would be. My usual advice is to speak to the airlines, ask them what they want from their pilots and how they get most of their pilots. Do they go to certain flight schools, maybe, and then you could go to that flight school and see what they do, things like that. But just keep asking the question. Absolutely. There you go, the last 747 into Heathrow, the glorious Union Jack flag flying out the hatch on BBC News, says James. There you go, last BA74. Lauren B says a lot of more current Airbuses have HUDs too. HUDs are mandatory in China. Are they really? I've never seen a HUD in the 320. Except for that very old one. It looked like a F-18 style HUD, very small. Good to see you, Julian. Thanks for coming. Rob says, can you explain thrust reduction acceleration on the go-around page? Well, that takes me in. I'm going to have to stop answering questions now and go to setting up the arrival, I'm afraid. But thank you all, and I will try and answer them as we continue the flight. But there we go. So first of all, let's just see if we have any weather going on in Malta. No, nothing down there. So forget that then. What I'll do is we'll go to weather up here. And look at this. I didn't realize you could do this. METAR. Oh, it doesn't work. Let's go into here. Yeah, you can grab METARs, but only from airports nearby. Instead of ATIS, we'll go for weather. And send. Here we go. Prints. Laurie says those HUDs are drop-down HUDs rather than dash-mount ones. There you go. Yeah, I haven't seen the drop-down HUD in the 320. I suppose it makes sense. It's an option. I don't know what it would look like. The aircraft certainly wasn't designed to fly with it, unlike the Dreamliner, which absolutely is. So, let's think about the flight plan now. So we're going into Malta. Let's close this. And this. And this. Zoom all the way along. Lima Mike. Mike Lima. Open. What's the weather doing there? It is 150.13, Cavo-K 18 degrees. So nice weather. 150. So it's southerly. So that means we'll land unusually, very unusually, on 13. Because that's too strong. So I was thinking about doing a visual approach, because there's no real terrain issues here, but with that wind we're going to go straight in, which might as well do the RS because we can start it from further out. So no star charts, RS13, we're going to come in via one of these waypoints. I will choose one shortly. It's a lovely airport. We have been here before on the channel, not that chart, but that was in X-Plane 11. Parking stands. We're going to be apron 9. That one. And that's it. No terrain around, low MSAs, sending over the water. It's just lovely. This is the sort of flight we like. Easy. So let's put in the RS413. I'll have to do a visual approach video another time. And let's go straight in via NOLA insert. Now let's look at the nav display. We'll go to plan and constraints, and then I'm just going to scroll through. Ooh, there's a warning. It wants to return after NOLA. Now I think this is because it isn't accounting for the speeds properly. No, it's because GZO is closer. Right, so I'm going to get rid of GZO. And then we'll go from Gola to NOLA. There we go. Should have been temporary. There we go. Now we've got straight in. And we'll see how the VNAV works, because on this sort of arrival, without any air traffic control interference, I would just do managed descent. I'd let the airplane plan it the whole way. So NEDOX is the initial fix. That is about 13.5 miles from touchdown. And the chart says 3,000. I want to be certainly no higher, or I want to be about 4,000 feet would be what I want to be there, roughly. So let's find that waypoint, because it's, even though I'm going to use the managed descent mode, the VNAV mode, this is the first stream I've done with the VNAV, because we did a video with it. Yeah, we haven't even used it on the stream yet. NEDOX, here we go. So I want to look in here, and look at that. The airplane wants to be 3,660 feet. Fine, that's good. We don't want to be above 4. So I'm going to leave that alone. NOLA at 7.6. Well, NOLA is a bit further away. NOLA is 11 miles away. So in 11 miles, it wants to lose 4,000 feet. That's a little bit sporty. I think it might struggle a tiny bit there. But it's making the restriction of above 3,000. I might need to use the speed brakes to help it out. But what we're going to do in this case is I'm going to let the airplane do it. So we're currently routing to Palermo. Then we got Maron, Ecola, NOLA, NEDOX. Do we have a top of descent marker? That's disappeared. There it is. That's a little down arrow. So 80 miles to go. Nice to have as well. It does. It's a big part of situational awareness having that there. Pizza Racer says, "Tell the passengers to hold on to their drinks during descent." Yeah, there you go. Good. So, like I say, I will always do that. Every pilot does that. It's not good enough just to assume managed descent works, because we found that there was a waypoint in the wrong place there, or it didn't quite tie up. The puzzle wasn't connecting properly, so we had to fix it. That's our job, you know. We can't fly over NEDOX at 10,000 feet and go, well, sorry, I didn't check it. Right, so that's looking good. That's the flight plan done. RadNav, Lima, Quebec, 109.7. There it is. Course of 132. There it is. That's all good. Progress page, LMML, and we're going to land on runway 13. Performance page. Let's put in the weather. So it needs the QNH, LMML, and this is why when it says data not inserted, it needs these numbers because it plans the cabin pressurization in the descent using the ground pressure. It looks at that QNH and says, oh, okay, I need to have an equivalent pressure of this when I get there. It's very clever stuff, way more advanced than if you were doing it manually. You wouldn't bother adjusting like that, but there we go. Temperature on the ground is a lovely 18 degrees. Remember, it is dark there in real life, so that's nice and warm, and wind is 150.13. So it wants the wind for ground speed mini. Good. Minima for this ILS 455. In it goes. Flat full landing. VAP 127. Nice and slow. So that's all good. It's a 3-degree ILS. Not much to say there. One thing I want to say is that the runway is long, and we're going to fly in over this with an inset threshold. So it's going to be a very strange visual picture. It's also a slightly wider than usual runway. I think it is. Not sure where they write that on these. I think that's on the other chart they have. Width, no, 45 meters. There you go. So no, standard runway. Good. Kelpie says, tips $1. Thank you very much, Kelpie. Very kind. Thank you. Kelpie says, thanks for streaming. Got to go to bed because I have work. Have a great day, or should I say night, I guess. Thank you so much, Kelpie. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for your kind words, and thanks for your donation. Really appreciate it. Have a good night, and I hope work treats you well tomorrow. Great to have you here. Thanks for the subscription to Pat and Fly Clever. Right. So, landing distances, something else we would obviously talk about. We've agreed that this is a long runway, 3,300 metres. I want to come off at Delta. Even so, with such a long runway, low water brake will be absolutely fine. I'm going to put that in. Low water brake, probably about 2,300 metres total required. But what I'll do is take over with manual brakes if and when we need it. So low water brake is set up there. Minima is in. Brake low armed. That's not fitted to all the 320 NEOs. So if you see any flight day videos of 320 NEOs, you might not see that. That's only on some of the newer or specific fits, but Flybywire have gone for a specific version of the avionics which airlines can customise and choose. Typing screws. Great question. What's the advantage of having new avionics on a plane when older avionics work fine? Well, some things change. Regulatory requirements change. So you might find, for example, CPDLC wasn't required and then now it is. So that is one side of it. The other thing would be if it's a safety case. So if an airline is having a high level of, I don't know, unstable approaches, and they look into it and they realise that all of these unstable approaches are happening whilst flying a circling approach. So they decide to find a way to change the avionics to include that. Or maybe it's because people aren't selecting an auto brake. And I'm not saying this really happens, but let's say everyone forgets to select the auto brake. So they've had instances of people landing and using more runway than anticipated. Well, in that case, you might want to fit the new avionics because it tells you on the PFD, and then the pilot monitoring can call it out on landing to check that it has engaged. Things like that. So there'll be safety cases. But what I can tell you is no airline will spend money just for the fun of it on new avionics. They will do it if there is a real need for it, and they would. Airlines just don't like. They see it as toys for the pilots usually, like having some features like nice TCAS and so on. Lauren B says we don't really do CPDLC in the US yet. It's getting there in Europe. It's becoming very popular and it's very good. I like it anyway. Beck says, do you use a specific tool to calculate performance? No. I have not been, but you can get your landing performance here if you wanted to. So let's fill data from OFP. Oh, that's not quite the situation we're in. But there you go. LMML. Does it have a runway? Runway altitude, runway heading. Well, we're going to land on 130. Approach speeds, something like 130. What did we say it was? Landing beyond the. I want the threshold number really, but there you go. 3054. That will do. Be more than enough. Approach speed of 130 at 60 tons. Overweight no, reverse thrust no, auto land no, dry runway. It's not quite the right winds. Does it want a runway slope? Let's just put in 0. How do I get it to calculate? What am I missing? Actually, it's sea level. There we go. And there you go, low water brake, 2,300 metres. So there you go. That's at 60 tons. And that's pretty much what we are now. There you go. So you can have a landing calculator. They've included one. Very nice of them. Again, the amount of stuff coming in this. Very good. Right, we're starting to get a bit of a view. Soon to head out. There we go. That's where we are. Over Sicily, and then we're going to head straight out to sea, and here's Malta. Right, I think that's the brief done then. We've set up the aeroplane. We've got an idea of our plan and our vacating the runway plan. Fuel-wise, 2.7 tons at the start of descent. That reckons 2.5, but that's obviously unrealistic because we're going to burn at least 500 kilos in the descent. So I reckon from here, we're probably going to land with about 2 tons, which would be very normal for a NEO. Very normal indeed. Maybe a bit more, maybe we'll have a bit more in tanks because it's this nice straight-in approach if we manage it properly. Listerman says, I thought QNH was mainly necessary for VNAV. It will of course play into that, but yeah, it does use it for the pressurization. That's the main instruction for it. Because you can start the VNAV descent even without it and it will carry on. Racing Pilot, thanks for subscribing. Dark says, what do you say to the new lights on the newest? Right, I'm going to look this up. Let's see. Eurowings. Let's see this. I didn't know it was even a thing. I didn't know Eurowings hadn't got a 320 NEO yet. Oh, well that article's no good because the picture's got the lights hidden. They're a bit late to the party. What's it called then? DAENA. Let's have a look. Find it on Plane Spotters. Oh, I see. So the lights, they're not in the wing, they are in the fairing, or the box, whatever that's called. How interesting. I have not seen that before. Very cool. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I wonder if we'll see more like that. And the taxi lights are no longer on the nose wheel. Again, it'll be more aerodynamic because of course the nose gear has big discs on the front of it where the lights are. And I can see one main advantage, which is moving the lights out of the way of the nose gear might reduce the chance of them being damaged. Because of course, if you have a glass fronted taxi light and it's just sitting on that nose gear, any stones or birds in particular, or lots of things can smash it, and it's sitting flat into the air, so it creates more drag and more noise. Whereas if you've got the lights back there, maybe a little less drag, but maybe a little more protected. Maybe there's, and if something does hit it, it's more likely to bounce off rather than smash into it because it's in the airflow. How interesting. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I had not heard or seen of that. Very interesting. Very neat. Right. We're getting to the top of descent, so let's see how it works. So I talked in my VNAV video about this. You were asking earlier, do I use open descent or managed descent? And I said I'd use managed descent. If we started our descent now, i.e. air traffic will often say descent flight level 300, and you just have to start. But if they did it late and we get to our top of descent and we fly through it, which is about to happen, and it's going to say top of descent reached, or the older aircraft would say decelerate, and you then go straight into managed descent, there's a real risk of overspeed because you can see there's not much margin. And if we go into managed descent, the aeroplane is allowed to adjust its speed up and down. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So we'll purposely get a little bit high, top of descent reached, there it is, and down goes the green donuts, we call it, telling us that we're high. So already I wouldn't do it. In the real aircraft, let's say we were cleared down to, I don't know, 250. In the real aircraft at this point, I would go open descent because the airplane will stay at the speed here in this window and it'll be very controlled. If I go to managed descent, it has a speed range, and you can see it's got some buffer to the red line, but actually I think there's a little too much buffer. I think it's about 5 knots normally, but anyway, could be a different fit. But there we go, it can't go much beyond that, but the real airplane has a habit of nosing over so much, because obviously right now you can see that it's got 250 blue, but it's taking time to accelerate. As we start going down, the speed target will increase because it's done on the Mach number at this high level, and that's going to keep moving as the indicated airspeed increases until it swaps over to an indicated airspeed. As a result, you can see it's happening here. We're getting slower and slower, so we have to keep pushing the nose down. And the airplane, this is being much softer. The real airplane will nose right over to try and target that speed because it knows it's high. It's trying to reach it, and it will go way down, and then suddenly it will realise, oh, that was probably a bit much, and the speed will go slightly through this pink line. Not by much, but if you're near the red bar, you could overspeed. Also, any wind change, if we suddenly picked up a headwind now, highly likely to suddenly push through into the overspeed. Once you're below flight level 300, it's rarely an issue, frankly. But in these first parts of the descent, especially if you're high like we are here, that could be an issue. So here we go. VNAV is not behaving like I'd expect now. It shouldn't be getting slow. It should actually be getting fast to try and make that flight level, because it knows it's this 20 here means it's 2,000 feet high. You also get that information on the progress page where it says VDEV plus 2,000 feet. You are plus 2,000 feet above where we thought you'd be. There's where it expects us to level off at the moment. Very cool. Very cool. I have Thrustmaster TCA hardware for the throttles, Pizza Racer, but I have the A320NX the A3XX grip from Winwing for the side stick. Johnny says, I've been flying in CAE Level D full motion simulator a couple of times. Thanks to 320 sim pilot, sim operators didn't believe that I wasn't a real pilot because I knew all the procedures and how to fly. Excellent. Thanks, Johnny. I really appreciate it. I'm glad it paid off. That's great. I hope you enjoyed it. I still remember my first time sitting in a full sim. Yeah, so this is hopeless now. Not hopeless, but it's just not doing what I want it to. So what are we going to do? Pull for open descent. There we go, and now it will more aggressively target the actual speed we have set, and down goes the nose. And even then, we're only going to parallel that level. Warren Smith, good to see you. Warren says, evening captain, late to the party, may have been asked before, why do quite a few Italian operators have Irish registered aircraft? I don't know, I'm afraid. I really don't know that. It's not uncommon to see airlines have different registrations, but why Italians have specifically Irish, I don't know. Sorry. Thanks for the subscription to Nicolo. Lush says, if airplanes are bought second hand, are they standardised to the rest of the fleet, or do pilots have to get used to several different versions? That will depend on the airline. It costs money to standardise them. If there is a safety case, then they will standardise them to the rest of the fleet, but if it's too expensive, or if there's not a safety case, they probably wouldn't bother. Just depends. Right, I'm way behind. I've been chatting so much there. But yeah, so that's again, my hardware is not talking well with the auto brake system, so we might find brake load does or doesn't work. Ryan Lee says, forgot to give you thanks, Captain, for your videos on the Toliss RNAV tutorials. I never quite understood the procedure, but your videos helped a lot. That's great, thanks Ryan, glad you enjoyed them. I will do them for this when it arrives. Okay, I'm just scrolling through. Talking about the Airbus lights, Listerman says, I feel this change was long overdue. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm surprised it hasn't happened sooner. Agreed. HK Simulations, thanks for the follow. And Trig. Runway slope will be on the charts. I'll have a look if I get a chance, because there is a bit of a slope at Malta. James says, if light design came from my firm, they'd give the first officer a torch and expect him to use it with a windscreen on taxi. Old Man Bishop says, they made some fixes just this morning for using that speed window. Next time you update, it'll be fine. Excellent, Old Man Bishop, thank you. This was the latest experimental version. It sounds like it's been updated since then. Birdman says, is the Z symbol where drag needs to be applied? No, the Z will be where if you use half speed brake, you'll intercept the original profile. So we're high, so that sometimes it will appear a little zigzag, and it's telling you that if you use speed brake, that's where you will re-intercept the profile you want to be on. It doesn't seem to always appear, and frankly it doesn't appear that all the time in the real airplane. I wouldn't get excited about it. I find it easier to judge. There you go, so that's telling me that I'll regain the profile just after Ecola if I use speed brake, but it's not that useful. We can see we're sort of paralleling the profile. I'll go back into manage and see what happens, but it sounds like I should have updated to make this work better. There's Des mode again. So this is what I would do in real life in this situation. We're well out of the range of overspeeding. You can see that there's no red bar either side of the target speeds. I'd let the airplane manage it because I checked it earlier. I know it's doing a good job, and I'm going to back it up with some rough numbers in my head. 25,000 feet, times that by 3, 75, plus 10. I need 85 miles to descend and land on this runway. And to the runway we have 70. So a little bit sporty, but it's a work in progress. I also would say sometimes the Airbus can be a little bit sporty. So it's not entirely unrealistic. Thanks so much, VT Jake, for the $2 super chat. Very kind of you. Really appreciate it. I hope you're doing very well. And that's thanks for coming along to the video today. And that's very generous. Really appreciate it. Apologies, I can't see your sticker. My YouTube chat has failed me. I can see the chat messages, but I can't see it through YouTube. I can only see it through Streamlabs. But thank you very much, VT Jake. Really appreciate it. I'm sure there's probably an animated pair or something similar. Thank you very much. Really very kind, VT. Right, Creme Brulee has been in a 320 sim and a 737 sim. Excellent, excellent. Oh, there you go. Now that's looking a bit more realistic. Half speed brake would intercept the profile there. So let's do it. Speed brake out. There it goes. And what that means is the airplane will have to lose speed, so it's going to lower the nose and pick up a higher vertical speed and hopefully regain it. But again, it's easier to look at this number and see whether you're getting closer, or even look at the number here. Oh, there you go. Aaron says the reason for the Irish registered aircraft is because they're the world leader in leasing and lower taxes. There you go. Chris says, thank God you're still flying the NX. I hope you don't abandon us Airbus lovers when PMDG comes out. Have a pleasant evening. Chris, no worries at all. We'll always be Airbusing on this channel, no doubt about it. But I will certainly be taking the 737 for a spin when the time comes. Edita says, I've found myself too high when descending via VNAV. It's experimental feature, so understandable. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, maybe it's just going to be a bit too high. This is starting to feel a little high. I mean, 60 miles to touchdown. It's got the descent roughly right, but it doesn't have any time for us to decelerate, so I think it's going to struggle to decelerate. And we're already using speed brakes. The Irish registration, says Nicholas, is mostly because lessors have more protections against bankruptcy, or otherwise inability for the airline to pay if it's registered in Ireland. There you go. So remember, a lot of these aircraft are owned by leasing companies rather than from the actual airlines. So VT Jake did indeed include I get a description here, pair character turning around waving his hand saying hey you while lowering his glasses. So thanks for the sticker, VT Jake. There's speed mode as it re-intercepts the profile. We're now at 2.6 on the fuel, looking good. Doc says, in autopilot, you can't go more than half speed brake on the A320 in it. Exactly right. So that's what I'm using. The A32NX is wrong at the moment because it does let you use... oh, they've actually changed it. Nope, it seems to be right. It doesn't use all of the speed brake panels like that. It actually, these inboard ones don't deploy, but regardless. And the outboard ones deploy slightly more in the real aircraft, but that's me being very fussy. Right, so it's on profile now, so we will leave it as it is. I still think this is recoverable, if a little bit high. Right, Matt says, great flight to Malta, I live there, no stars, I think, it's direct arrival. Yeah, exactly, I love Malta, and very lucky, Matt. Lovely place to live. To have some amazing fireworks celebrations at certain times of the year. James says, I'm guessing you would not be allowed to fly without weather radar or terrain radar as the fly-by-wire mod is currently in real life. So you don't need the weather radar unless there's severe weather forecast. So you can fly without a weather radar, but you need the weather to be good, and that will be a judgment of the pilots as to what they think the forecast is like. If it's no chance of any thunderstorms or rain and it's daylight, then sure, why not? But if there's any chance of that, no, you really want that radar. The terrain display would be a different one. I'm pretty sure you could go without the terrain display, but I would need to look it up. Because again, not long ago, this stuff wasn't even fitted to aircraft and we were safe to fly. So yeah, it's great to have, but there are failures that could mean you end up like this, and you need to still be able to build up your situational awareness. And you'll do that using the charts like we have, so we know where the terrain is. We know that the MSA is very low, looking at below 2,000 feet, down at 1,800, and we're also visual. There may be restrictions on the sort of airports you can go to, or maybe some airports would say you need to have these systems operating to go. For example, an airport with terrain around, like Innsbruck. That could be the difference. White circles around the airport. These magenta circles are showing us that there are constraints, hence the plus 3,000. So altitude constraints. And there's our decel point where the airplane will automatically activate the approach phase for us. Something funny says I did my first full flight on A32NX without any aid thanks to your videos. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Something funny. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Ah yes, Rena does not take into account winds. That's truly to me well remembered. Yeah, absolutely. Pavel says, anyone else find the 737 cockpit messy compared to 320? I certainly do. I can agree with that. Right, we're going to drop down to, let's pick our first procedural altitude, NOLA 3,000 feet, so we can get all the way down. And we're going to set the QNH. So we'll carry on actually with the checklist here. So let's go to checklists. Power F is on QNH. Oh yeah, let's do it. Seatbelts can go on. Minimum set, auto brake low, engine mode can stay normal. That's the approach check's complete. Next is landing. Eco memory landing, they're blue. That's a very Airbusy way to do it. A lot of airlines have managed to add their own things in there, but yeah, I like that. Very simple, very clear. Yeah, I should have updated. I thought I had the latest experimental version, but maybe I do not. I must have missed it. Peter says, in the real plane, do you have to manually input the climb, cruise and descent winds, or are they pulled automatically? It takes me ages to key them all in. Yeah, so for short flights, some airlines will have you do it yourself. They won't use ACARs. For short flights, I haven't bothered here. What I did was I put on the init B page, which you can't get to in flight, I put in the wind component. So +2 or -2. I got that from my flight plan. And that's what I did. Let's go. So average wind component +2. So I put TL2 on the init B page. If you rewind the streams when I was setting it up, you can see that. And that's what I would do for a short flight under 2 hours. I don't really see the point in loading in every wind. It's not too important. It's just giving you an average prediction. However, you're right. If the descent winds are wrong, it could mess up the VNAV, so it could be worth it. Although, as we said, the current A32NX does not take into account the VNAV. I think I've done more talking on this stream than I ever have on a stream. Got to make up for all the time lost not streaming. So, RS is coming on. Oh, we should talk about the go around as well. So if we need it, straight ahead to ML 101 and then a right turn, climbing up to an altitude of 3,000 feet and then as directed. Right, 8. So I think we need 24. So it's only got exactly 24. I think we're getting a bit high here. It's starting to get to that point. Highest amount of feet per minute, I've seen 6,000 feet per minute with passengers, which is no problem. Routinely though, especially at these lower levels, we wouldn't go above 3,000 feet per minute, and even that would be quite rare just for a short period. You end up sort of down at the 2,000 feet per minute, but it does depend what you need to do. Vertical speed itself isn't dangerous as long as you are away from the terrain and it doesn't set off the GPWS. James, hello to you, thanks for coming along. Right, 7:14:21, 23 miles to go. We're getting close now. There's the first island and then there's Malta. By the way, scenery exemplary as ever. Oh, what I do need to do is start the recorder or we won't get any replay. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is.
4 miles 5.
Okay, replay is recording. So this is going to get sporty now because we're still 250 knots. So how am I going to fix this? And this is not an unrealistic situation. I can tell we're a bit high, 6, 12, 18 miles. We've got 1 mile over the profile. And you can see the Airbus isn't going to decelerate until there. Again, not uncommon. So within 90 miles, we could reasonably be cleared for the approach. But if we join the glide slope clean at 250 knots, we're going to have real problems. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to full speed brake, which we know will only give us half. And I'm going to go into open descent down to 3 so that I am forcing the airplane to go hopefully below profile, although it's struggling to do that. We can't lower the gear until we're below 250. And indeed, yeah, something funny, plus 3,000 means anything above 3,000 feet, absolutely. So let's see if we can fix this. The gear is the ultimate tool for fixing it if we're too fast, which we could well be here. What was the traffic? Itaro 308, 16 mile final to land runway 13. We can actually see the traffic in front of us there, and someone looks like they're approaching on the other side. So we're getting below the glide slope now. So what I can start to do is trade speed for energy, but what I'm going to do is keep full speed brake out. 250 knots at 15 miles is the fastest I want to be. So let's activate the approach phase ourselves. Now it's going to raise the nose, so now we're going to start trading some of our fact that we're slightly low for speed. I don't really want to put the gear down if I don't have to, so I'm going to stick with full speed brake, which is working for us for now. I am below glide slope, but whilst we lose the speed, because 250 is a very slippery aeroplane at 250, we've got the landing lights off. Oh, well, there we go. That's the sort of thing you do at this point. Pilots would do that. And here it's going to work out nicely. I think those speed brakes are a little more effective than they are in the real aircraft, but we shall see. So, flaps to 1. But again, joining the glide slope like this, it's possible. It's possible now. With flaps 1 out, the next thing we can do is drop the gear. So let's arm the approach and the second autopilot. That is glide slope blue, catch visual AP 1+2. Here comes the glide slope, speed glide slope star, and look, we can't put out flap 2, so we're going to keep the speed brakes out, because if we are above 200 knots without flap 2, the airplane may even accelerate as it goes down the glide slope, because it's only got a gentle headwind. So 10 miles out, now we're below 200 knots, we're getting into the right position. 3000 white is seen, so that is, again, that's a very modern fit of avionics, not all the Neos have that. Let's go to flaps 2. And as soon as you got flap 2 out, there comes the drag. We are in good shape. Let's get rid of the speed brakes. And now, there you go. What's it doing? Why is it adding power? It should be coming back to 130. 9 miles, 190. And there's the runway. Again, the scenery just captures this island so well, and this is just entirely default. There's the radio altimeter, which makes sense. About 400 feet elevation because of the terrain beneath us here. A little bit early, but then you can see it's gone away again, so I'd expect it to come back later on. I don't need to drop the gear then. 180 at 8 miles is reasonable. Remember, by 7 miles, about 170. The red light keeps popping up. That's because we're just passing over some quite high hills here, which are obviously pushing it just into the threshold for waking up. Okay, it's not slowing down now, so we're passing 7 miles, still at 180. So that's what I mean. This is with flap 2 out with the drag. Imagine if we were flap 1. In a turboprop you can do it, but the jets, once they go down the glide slope, they can struggle. Right, there's 6 miles, 170. It's starting to look normal, but let's go gear down.
Malta traffic, Itaro 178, runway vacated, and into section data.
Excellent. Traffic in front's vacated. Now the gear is going to provide the real drag. It's the thing on the cabin. No, white altitude is a thing that it does in some of the very new fits. Flaps to 3. And flaps to 4. Bit breezy. Let's run the landing checklist, which we know was very simple. Eco memo, landing no blue. There it is. Oh, I see. I should have marked them all as complete. It was nice and green. Next one's after landing. Excuses, windy. It looks very windy. Neo, strange visual picture because of the undershoot. Been a while since we landed this add-on. Is that enough? I think that's enough excuses. Auto brake's not working. For landing, I'm going to have the runway turn off and the nose to taxi. I only put it to take off for takeoff. Strange little detail, but yeah, that's what I do. Some people will put it all the way for both. So we are stable at 1,000 feet and we are definitely visual. Malta traffic, Itaro 308, final approach, runway 13, 3 miles to land. Okay, you can't see any traffic in front, landing the other way, which is good. Bit of a tailwind that way because we have a nice strong headwind for us here. Bit of mechanical turbulence coming off the ground, no problem at all. Well, it is. I've used it as an excuse already. Again, Microsoft Flight Simulator's ability to capture the feel of an area is second to none. There's our shadow. Love it when the sun's behind us and we can see our shadow. I just need to adjust the seat slightly. Something a lot of pilots do as well, I've talked about this before, is obsessively shuffle the seats. About this point, you'll hear the motors of the seat whirring as the pilot fine-tunes it, because it does make a difference. You want to have it exactly right, or you can find it a strange sensation trying to land. Right, autopilot off.
Market traffic, UPS 65.
100 above.
Don't seem to have any pappies.
200.
There's the shadow. Love
Minimum.
that. So wind now, slightly from the right.
100.
Love the shadow.
50. 40. 30.
Into the flare.
20. Retard.
Idle.
10.
Bit of left rudder.
5.
There's the touchdown. Reverses out. Reverse idle. And we'll take this next high speed. That's a reversal. We don't want to do that. Air traffic wouldn't appreciate us reversing ourselves because it would be very slow. Low water brake did work, so we'll go manual brakes. And welcome to Malta. There we go. Right, coming off to the left here. And the replay is recording, so we'll get to see that again. I think I saw out the corner of my eye a pretty high vertical speed. I don't think that was fair. But there we go. It was it's a huge runway, as you can see, but just I can't express to you how it's forward idle on the engines, by the way. I can't express to you how pleasing it is to see Microsoft Flight Simulator capture what that approach looks like in the real life, what the texture of the houses around you on approach are, the shadow growing in the window. It's a real treat, and it's something special that they've managed to do there. And I know graphics don't count for everything if we're just looking at systems, but they add a lot to the feeling of flying these airplanes around day to day, and that is yet another approach that I'm so impressed with. ETA 308, runway vacated for Malta. Thanks very much. Yeah, indeed. Runway vacated, Zymac, thank you very much. So we're going to go and park up. I'm going to leave the flaps. I'm going to just get rid of the spoilers. And I'll leave the lights. Again, I know this is unrealistic, but we do it for the replay. Got to have the replay. Thanks for the follow, Hyperspace Cat. If you are watching on YouTube, really do appreciate if you could leave a like if you enjoyed it. Right. Replay coming, of course. Let's go park up on the terminal. Harwick says the systems are also coming together bit by bit. Exactly, yeah. I mean, what they've done with this mod and then combined with those graphics, it's a real treat. And I love the Toliss and X-Plane, don't get me wrong, and there's plenty more X-Plane streams to come, but there's also some great things in this simulator here. I'm using Flight Recorder, Samek. And James Cooper, unbelievably generous as ever. James, really far too kind. James says, amazing landing. Thanks for all you do again. Very informative for all of us here. Hopefully this sorts out to your terminal office. Terminal coffee and FO streamies for a while. All the best. Hopefully see you soon. Good night. Good night, James. Just thank you again. Far too generous. I don't know what to say to that. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for supporting the channel. Braddles, thanks for you for the follow. Right, so parking up, something like that, and we would stop there. And of course, the normal shutdown procedure we are going to skip because we're going to have to disconnect. Let's just see if someone's landing. Any second now. Ooh. There's some traffic, so let's hop into the drone. If I can do it quick enough. Ooh, this is going to be a challenge. There we go. Right, we'll just watch this landing. CK says, here, your insight into real-world operations on the Airbus are fantastic. Thank you, CK Sim Gaming. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Ed. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks to all of you who've come along and watched, and of course thank you for very, very kind donations, and James, really far too generous, really appreciate it. If you have questions and I haven't managed to answer them today, I do apologise, but we will look at them next time, or you can bring them to the next stream and I will there we go. I'm not sure what aircraft they're flying, but yeah, I'll do my best to answer them. That's why this was a relatively short flight. I can't believe how many questions we've had. But thank you all for coming along. And of course more streams to come soon. Lovely, there we go. Colleagues with us. I suspect that's just a a slight lag issue that it's put it slightly off to the side. That'd be a Vatsim thing. 380 though, joining us. Very nice. Right. Time for the replay. We definitely want a left side. I want to see the shadow, so that one probably. Is that going to work? We shall find out. So, this is from Vatsim. Thank you to Vatsim. We did have some very nice controllers on our departure there, which is very much appreciated. We're going to stop recording the replay, and we're going to hit replay. And then going to jump to a normal sort of view. Again, we can enjoy that livery. Ignore the flaps and so on. That's the biggest downside of Microsoft Flight Simulator for now remains. When are we going to get a proper replay? CK says, I think this is 747-400 for UPS. There was model matching. There we go. Sorry if it's a bit loud as we're outside. Let me just lower the sim a bit. Mata says, I find the nose dip from braking the sim very aggressive. Do you think the same? Well, I find the simulator does, the real aircraft does dip the nose. If you suddenly go on the brakes, you really do notice it. So it could just be that it's hard to get feedback from how much you're braking in the simulator. I suspect, I don't find it a problem. No, I think it's relatively fair. Brakes are quite sensitive in the aircraft, and slowing down these heavy machines, they do dip the nose. Yeah. Elisa Maggie, thank you so much for the tip. Really appreciate it. Elisa says tip $10. Really very kind. Thank you for the stream, entertaining, educational as always. It's so kind, Elisa Maggie. Thank you very much. I really don't say you've all been far too generous as ever. Very kind of you. And thanks for coming along, and thanks for saying so and contributing. Really appreciate it. Right, here we go then. So, on the centre line, ignore the flight controls. Into the flare, a little bit of a float, moving the drift, touching down. So, what I'll say, yeah, 374, come on, that's not true. It could be there's a bit of a downslope, I don't know. But what I'll say is, that little manoeuvre at the end where you get the drift off, that's, if you don't manage that, and I don't always manage it, especially when there's less wind, if there's not much of a crosswind, it can be very hard to judge if you need to remove the drift or how much to. If you get it wrong and the wheels land at a slight angle, which they can, up to 5 degrees in the Airbus is acceptable, but then the whole airplane will judder on touchdown, even if you had a nice smooth landing otherwise. So getting that drift off there. And now, as the wheels touch down, they're pointing straight down the tarmac, and they can roll and spool up nicely, so it doesn't send that judder through the cabin, which can make an otherwise okay landing feel a bit rough. But in the right place, right speed, yeah, there we go. 270 was the first time, yeah, and I don't think I'm quite happy with that landing. But yeah, James has said, not been done for a while. Good night. £3.20, very kind, James. Again, far too much, yeah, helping us out. And then another £3. Which is pair character stretching his arm forward and raising his hand up. James, thank you so much. Really very kind. I hope you're doing well, and we'll see you on the next one. Yeah, agreed. I absolutely love the blue livery. It's really nice, and this is a great one. This is on flightsim.to, and it's just super. They've done a fantastic job with it. Right, so let's put ourselves back. Something reasonable. I always struggle to time the. Not there. There. Struggle to time the replays with the music, but we should try somewhere there. Probably going to be a bit soon, but there we go. Right, back into the window view. Good. Okay. 2 to 6 that time. There you go. So it's changing quite a lot. Right. That's it then. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me on this one. Loads of stuff we've got to do still, of course. We are going to fly the PMDG whenever we get it, whether that's after release or on release. We'll be there. More videos to come as well, looking at the full version of the 146 when that arrives. So lots of exciting stuff, as well as, of course, Airbus streams. We've got more Airbus streams and streams in the other Boeings all to come on the channel. Sorry there's been a bit of a gap up to this one, but again, that's not normal, but it was just very busy. But yeah, it's been great to be back. I was really excited to do this, and I've enjoyed it a huge amount. Thank you all for coming along. Thank you for chatting. Thank you for watching if you didn't chat. Thank you for joining us on Twitch and YouTube. Thank you for those incredibly generous donations. Really, really appreciate it. And of course, thank you to the moderators for looking after us all in the chat. I hope you have a very good evening or rest of the day wherever you are. and we'll see you again. Last video up on the channel is about Brussels Mega Airport. I do recommend it if you're interested in scenery. It's one of the more detailed sceneries I've seen in Flight Simulator, or flight simulation in general. That's it then. Have a good rest of the day. See you next time. Bye bye.